Hey, everybody. This is Craig Garver. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. We got a very successful session and touring player out of LA, originally from the East Coast, Jim McGorman. And let me give you a cliff notes of Jim. He's a multi-instrumentalist, touring and session player. As I said, he's also a very successful independent artist, producer out in LA. He's worked with some of the biggest names in the business for the last 25 years, even though he looks like he's about 12 years old. But he's also been the music director for Ariana Grande. Is that the right way to pronounce her last name? Grande?
Ariana. Yeah, Grande.
Ariana.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Gwen Stefani, Avril Lavigne, Weezer, Paul Stanley from Kiss, Michelle Branch, and Cassidy Pope, who is winner of The Voice. In the studio, Jim's written and recorded with Miley Cyrus, Avril Lavigne, Shakira, Goo Goo Dolls, Poison, Michelle Branch, Aaron Neville, David Lee Roth, and many others. He's played on hundreds of TV shows and was actually part of the house band on The Voice and the hit CBS TV show Rockstar. He's played on some pretty big stages all over the world, including Glastonbury, the World Cup concert in South Africa, Rock in Rio Lisbon, Rock in Rio Madrid, the Tokyo Dome, the Madison Square Garden, and Giant Stadium. In 2018, Jim joined the multi-platinum selling band, the Goo Goo Dolls, and he's played guitar and keyboards with Gwen Stefani since 2015. During COVID, this is almost impossible to believe, but we talked about it earlier, so it's true. Jim produced over 70 songs for independent artists, and he owns and operates Green Hill, which is his studio located in the San Fernando Valley. Dude, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get into this. You were born in Philly, and you grew up in New Jersey, and both your parents were performers of some sort. Was becoming a professional musician something that therefore you knew you wanted to do when you were little?
Pretty early, yeah. I always kind of go back and try to remember. I think I was about 12 or 13. I was playing piano from a pretty early age, and I remember, because this was MTV, right? When there were videos and they were cool, and
is MTV still around?
I think it's on. I don't know if they have videos. I mean, I think so. But this was a big deal. We would watch the videos all the time, and I do remember seeing a handful of videos shot in Los Angeles that made it seem really appealing, and. No, I don't even know if it was so much that I was like, I'm going to be a professional musician, but I was like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to be doing music of some kind. I didn't really have a specific path, but I thought LA, it was around the same time, knowing that LA was going to be a part of this.
That's interesting.
So that was pretty early that, if I remember correctly. Plus, being,
cool.
Growing up in Philly, South Jersey area, I would go to New York quite often, and it was a very intimidating city for me. I just never felt comfortable there.
Really?
And even after I went to school, I went to Berkeley in Boston, which is a big city, and then friends would say, okay, well, some guys are going to New York and some guys were going to LA, and New York was never really something, a city that I thought, okay, maybe. I was always kind of like, nah, I don't feel it. And I felt very small there. It rains a lot. It's pretty dark and humid. And I don't know. I never, it wasn't really one of my options. Like, I wasn't thinking that was going to be a place for me. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so we talked earlier, you're a multi-instrumentalist, and I was curious, guys like you that are so proficient on, it's hard enough to play one instrument, at least for me anyway, but you're proficient at many. So I was curious, is there like a primary instrument you consider yourself first?
Yeah, definitely piano is probably my first love, and the thing that the instrument that I'm the most comfortable on, I should say. I mean, I was always joking with my friends. I mean, I got really lucky to get certain jobs where I was playing guitar, where I don't want to say that I wasn't good enough to do the job, but there were many more qualified guys on the guitar to do a lot of these jobs. I think one of the reasons that I got the jobs was my overall musicianship and the fact that I can kind of work in different, it's singing and playing piano and playing guitar was I think a big reason. But I think it's just my overall musicianship, and that's something that I talk to people, or people ask me about, and because there are guys who specialize in one thing and are like the best, or one of the 20 best at that thing.
Yeah.
And then there are guys that can do a bunch of different things. And you can be successful both ways.
Yes.
But for me, it was, again, like, I mean, there's better guys at every instrument and every different thing. But I got it to a place where I felt like I was at a pretty high level as a vocalist, as a piano player and a guitar player. So that, but piano is where I'm, the most comfortable, for sure.
That's cool. So I was going to ask you, were there any cultural adjustments you had to make from being a lifelong East Coast guy going to LA? But I guess not. It sounds like you just had that.
I don't know if it was cultural as much. I know that as a player, coming from Berklee, which at least when I was there, it was very much focused on, I don't want to use the word perfection, but being very, very, very in time, and I don't want to say rigid, but at least at the time I felt like I was really trying to be precise. Let's say maybe that's a better word to describe it. And then when I got out here and started playing around, a couple of friends of mine, we would kind of talk about like unberklifying our playing. And,
Sure.
Someone would say something like very ambiguous, like, hey man, you got to put some grease on that. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean I'm not supposed to play in time? And then you kind of, once you start getting into a higher level of proficiency in nuance of where, the nuances of music are, and understanding that you can be in time, but also be a little bit behind a beat or ahead of a beat. And you can be in pitch, but you can also dip up to a note and et cetera, et cetera. And there's these minute adjustments that make something hip or not, or cool or not. And so I think that was the learning curve for me. Also just getting more comfortable in different musical settings. Because, I never like intended to be guitar player or piano player to the stars, that kind of thing. I mean, I was a singer. I had aspirations of being a singer songwriter and kind of having a band. But I also was very open to whatever came through. So, I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why I did not become a successful artist, is because I have some ADHD, and I get scattered, and, and someone will say, hey man, you want to come play keyboards for this band over here? It's like, okay, let's go over here, and that's cool. And I like these tunes. I'll go over here and play with this person. And then I just kind of, I blinked and 10 years had gone by, once I kind of got rolling.
Yeah. That doesn't change, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Blinking 10 years going by.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
So how did you first get things going once you get out there? And I have a ton of respect, just to let you know, for someone like you that just says, hey, I'm going to go to LA, or I'm going to go just up and moving. I really respect that. I think there's a lot of balls. And I think you have to have a certain level of confidence, and in spite of what you said, I think you have to have a certain level of direction and specificity about that to do something like that.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think it's confidence and ignorance. I mean, it's just straight up.
But you got to be
like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's kind of like I said, I would say to my mom, oh yeah, I'm going to be fine. I'll do voiceover. I don't know. I was making shit up. I didn't, cause she was nervous.
Naive optimism. You said that,
naive optimism. I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. But that was the time too. One of the great things about being young is that you haven't failed that much yet. So, it's okay. You just go for it. I got lucky. It's actually a great little story. So, kind of a smallish town outside of, it's called Cherry Hill, New Jersey, was where my mother, where I grew up. And there were a couple kids who went to my high school that moved out to go to USC 1 or 2 years before me. So they were, a year or two older than me. They were these two best friends, Jamie and Tracy. And I didn't really know them that well in high school. But I would play the Battle of the Bands, and I would play anytime, I had bands in high school every single year. So we would always have a different, I think we changed our name every year. It was like one of those things, and we'd swap out a guy or two. But pretty much ever since I was a freshman, I started playing in bands. And so these two guys that ended up going to USC, I think one was for film school and the other was for, I think, music management. They were just such big music fans, right? So they would devour music. And then when they moved to LA, this thing called the LA Weekly, which was like this paper, and it would tell you who was playing at all the various clubs all over the city. I booked a gig maybe within 9 months of moving out to LA, and it was just under my name. It was just Jim McGorman playing at a place called the Roxbury, which was on Sunset. And then it turned into this thing called Miyagi's and then all this other stuff. It's been like 20 different things, but it was a cool club. And it was in the LA Weekly, and these guys came to the show. These two guys, I hadn't seen them
because they saw you.
They were living in LA, and so 4 years later or whatever it was, they were like, is this the guy we went to high school with? And so they just showed up at the thing. So we kind of reconnected, and it turned out that one of them was working at a music manager's management company. And not that long after, he called me and said, hey, we're managing this new girl on Elektra Records. She needs a band, and there's going to be auditions, and I can get you in on the auditions. And my friend Jamie Feldman, shout out to you, buddy. He got me in on the very first audition. And there is a guy named Barry Squire, who's kind of
I've heard that guy,
Barry?
Legend.
Yeah.
I try to get him on the show. I can't get a hold of him.
Well,
yeah,
he's
I've heard
elusive.
him
He's elusive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him in a while, but for a period of time.
He was a matchmaker, basically, right?
He was the unofficial mayor of putting musicians together with legitimate bands. So he had this little business, or large business. I think he was working as A&R as well, but he knew all the labels, and he knew when everybody needed a band. So he had a pool of musicians, and this is when there were CDs, and so he would get CDs out to like 30 guys or 50 guys. I don't know how he did it. And this was before the internet, it was like he was running around town handing out CDs and mailing stuff. And then he would, book a room at SIR or one of these places, Third Encore, and they would have, everybody would have a 15-minute slot or whatever it was, and you wait in the hall. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was also great, So you go out and that was it. And he was the guy who put that first band together. And I just got really lucky because that band,
artist?
Her name was Rebecca, which was just Rebekah, just one word. And she was on Elektra Records. She's a lighter skinned African-American woman who's beautiful, and she was a great singer. And she was kind of doing like a female Lenny Kravitz thing. So it was like rock and roll. And he was huge at the time. This was like 97. So she put this band together, and it's actually insane to think about it. But so the bass player in that band is currently the bass player in The Who. So that just shows you where, John Button. So he was one of my longtime friends. We did our very first tour together
ages ago here. Yeah.
And so John was the bass player. The drummer was a guy named Herman Matthews, who's a legendary guy who played for Kenny Loggins, Tom Jones for years, Tower of Power. I mean, his list is, and he was like a big deal to me then, and I knew who he was because I would look at the liner notes, and I saw I'd seen his name, and played with Richard Marx, who I was a big fan of. And by the way, let's just give a shout out to Richard Marx, because he doesn't get any good credit. I mean, nobody ever talks about him in this echelon. And I got to say, it's not hip to like Richard Marx, but like the dude's first seven singles were like top 5. Like
that's pretty badass.
Amazing singer, plays piano, plays guitar, writes, produces. Those were the types of guys, the Phil Collins, the guys that did 5 things. Those are the guys that I looked up to and emulated. And that's who I wanted to be. So, when Herman got in the band, and I was like, oh my God, he played with Tower of Power, and which I knew of, and from Berkeley, and my father, and then Richard Marx and Kenny Loggins. I was like, this guy is like unbelievable. And then the guitar player is a guy named Emerson Swinford, which is a phenomenal name.
What a name! God.
Yeah.
Emerson, is he British?
No, he's like from Carolinas or something. And he's a great guitar player. He went on to a bunch of different things, and then I think he's been playing with Rod Stewart for the last 10 years. So I was like the baby, right? I was like 23 or something, or 20, whatever I was, 23, 24. And I had, and all these guys were at least 2 to 5 years older than me, maybe 3 to 7 years older than me. And I learned a lot on that tour. I mean, not just musically, but about life, and, and it was a multiracial band. And I grew up in a pretty, white bread community. And so, being around those great people from different backgrounds, when I look back on it, it was an incredibly fortunate experience for me. Not just that I was getting paid for the first time to go tour all over the world, but those guys, that group that was assembled was pretty amazing. And they're all great people. And I'm still friends with all of them today. I mean, we don't talk all the time, but John and I talk more than everyone else. But I still, text with the other guys, and
that's cool.
So I got really lucky. So at least that's how I view it. And that kind of, just to finish that out, that the Barry Squire connection.
Hey guys, this is a new project I'm involved with, so if it sounds interesting to you, check it out and let me know what you think. If you're a musician, composer, artist, or songwriter, and you want to know how to start earning serious money creating music without ever having to be depressed about how little you're making from streaming services, then check out this new free video training called Where the Money's Hiding in the Music Business in 2023. You can find it online at musicreboot.com, and this video shows you how to use your existing music and composing skills to create the financial stability you've always wanted.
That for the next 10 years was really key, because he was kind of the guy putting all these other things together. And for, the better part of the next decade, I was on his list, and I was like getting almost every job that he had put me up for.
That's awesome.
I was able to get. So I got really lucky. I mean, it kind of was like, year after year, he would be, say, oh, there's a thing coming up, or whatever it is.
So when you finish the, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
When you finish the gig, would you just call him and say, hey, Barry, this gig just ended. If you got something opens up, let me know. Or would he just know somehow?
I don't think I ever did that. I don't recall if I ever did. But I would remember hearing through the grapevine that something was coming up, or
okay.
I mean, my memory's a little fuzzy on it. I mean, it's been a while, but I don't remember ever specifically calling him. There is one story that I'll jump ahead to, which I think is important for players, because I'm not a terribly aggressive person. We were talking before we started the thing about marketing, which for myself, I'm not so great at. But I had heard through the grapevine, this is flash forward to the end of 2006. I had just done 2 years of TV shows, and Paul Stanley, we just did this little tour with him, which is incredibly fun. But it was kind of short lived. And then, a buddy of mine called, and David Levita, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a wonderful guitar player.
Yeah.
He's
phenomenal.
He's like one of my favorite.
He's a really good guy.
Session guitar players.
Yeah.
He's incredible. He called and said, hey, they're looking for a guitar player for Avril Lavigne, and he said, I'm not gonna go or whatever, but they want someone who can sing. And he says, and he had a weird gut feeling. He goes, I think this is like right for you. And I hadn't thought much. I knew who she was, but I didn't really know that much about it. And I listened to a couple songs, and I thought, okay, you know what, this actually might work. And I called Barry, and I never heard back from him. And and this may have been 1 day or 2 days. Back then I was like, because once you hear about something, it's like you got to move. You got to move on it. So I was like, I think I was pretty surprised I didn't hear right back from him. And I found out later that, so they give him parameters of age groups, which I don't even know if that's legal anymore, but
this is one of the few businesses where it still is like that.
Yeah. They'll say, hey, we're looking for a guy 25 to 30 or whatever. Right. And if you're not under that thing, he's not going to call. Now, it's not a knock to him. I mean, he's doing his job as they're telling him. Yeah. I was maybe 32 or whatever it was at the time, or maybe they were looking for, they didn't want to pay a lot, whatever it was. But I didn't hear back. And so I thought, okay, well, I've been around here a minute. Like, maybe I know somebody that knows somebody that can get me
Barry.
They can give me and what had happened was the story was that I had heard was they had already looked at 70 guys. So they had done like multiple, cattle call days where they had all these guys coming in and it just, they couldn't find the guy that she wanted. This was not for a lead guitar player. This was for rhythm guitar and vocals.
Like you,
and so and again, when I heard that, and I think David probably explained that to me. He said, "Look, this is not a lead thing. It's rhythm and vocals." So I called a friend, and then I got a hold of somebody that was already in the band, a guy named Devin, who was the lead guitar player and the musical director at the time, and we had a nice chat, and he got on the phone with me. And then he called Barry and said, you got to get this guy in, let him come in. So I kind of bullied my way in because,
good for you, yeah.
Which was a big.
I don't think it's bullying. I think it's just networking.
I circumvented the guy who was putting it together. But I had I have gut feelings that are usually pretty good when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I just had a weird feeling that was what I was supposed to do. And I went in there with, I went in there with a lot of confidence. And so it worked out. But
that's
yeah,
awesome,
long-winded answer to your question. Sorry.
No, it's a cool story. And I think people need to listen to that because musicians in general, I'm a marketing guy. That's what I've been doing for 30 years, close to 30 years and 24 years. And, I have this conversation with musicians all the time. You guys are allergic to marketing. You're allergic to business for the most part. So when I hear these stories, I'm happy. And I think more of these stories should come out there because, what did it cost you? A little hustle, a few phone calls, and you got a gig and you still work with her. So,
the Avril was almost 10 years. I was with her from end of 06 till 13. So yeah, okay. that was a 7-year
gig.
But that was a long
major gig.
Yeah, it was a great run. I became her musical director when Devin left, which was 1 year later. So I kind of was in that role from 08 to 13. And that band as well. I know Al Berry.
He's awesome.
And Steve Ferlazzo and Steve Feckety and Rodney Howard and Devin. Right. That band, those guys are still some of my best friends. I'm actually playing with them tonight. I'm playing with Steve Ferlazzo and Feckety and Al Berry tonight. I'm going to sit in down in Hollywood and sing a couple songs with them. So
that's awesome.
That's one of the best things about it. I will. But that's one of the best things, like lifelong friendships that kind of come out of these bands. If they're the right group. Which is pretty incredible when you kind of think about where everybody comes from. It's like that's one of the coolest parts.
He's a Philadelphia guy.
Who's that?
Al Berry.
Yeah, I never really equate him from Philly.
Yeah, he's
I
a
thought
Philly
he
guy.
was, but he's like he grew up in Baltimore, I believe. I
Oh,
think
maybe it was okay. It was
yeah,
Baltimore.
yeah,
All right. I
yeah.
thought it
He's
was
a
Philly for
Baltimore
some
guy,
reason.
but like
Okay.
Feckety's from Jersey, so
Jersey,
he's from
right.
North Jersey, and Ferlazzo is from New York.
Okay.
So but a lot, we're all East
That's
Coast
so
guys,
funny.
and yeah.
Interesting story about Al. People, the first question
Excuse me.
people usually ask me is, "Hey, what's your favorite interview?" I've done 920. It's a hard question, but I have to tell you, Al is one of my favorites, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
it was a
That's the
great
one.
one.
That's
It's
the
a
one.
great one.
That guy is just awesome. What he's got his shit together. Al, you're the man. David Levita, you too.
Yeah, all good, great guys, man.
So I want to talk about some of those. That was a really good story. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Sure.
I want to talk about some of the artists that you've worked with, and if you could tell me how you wound up first connecting with them, and any funny or cool or interesting story. Talk about the Goo Goo Dolls first.
Well, the funny part about that is the second tour that I was ever on opened for the Goo Goo Dolls. So this is the New Radicals. We had
wild.
a little, probably 3 weeks, maybe a month. I don't even know if it was that long, but this is, kind of at the height of Iris. They were doing huge places. The New Radicals had a hit. So I met them in 1998, but I didn't really, they were crazy and I was a crazy kid. So I didn't really like connect with them, but I knew them and I met them. And then flash forward, and then Brad Fernquist, who was in the New Radicals with me, he's one of my best friends. And we had met on the audition for the New Radicals, which is also kind of a good story. But, he got a call from them, in the early or mid 2000s. And he's been playing with them for 17 years. So we opened for them in 98, and then he started playing with them in 2005 or 6 or something.
That's wild.
So he got in there.
Dude,
and
17 years in the music business is like, 70 years in real life.
It's like dog years. Yeah, you got it. It's like times 7. So yeah, I mean, for a professional musician to stay on one job for that long, when you're not like a founding guy, it's pretty impressive. So
very impressive.
So he's been there for forever. And then in 2010, the guy who was playing keyboards and guitar was subbing or doing something else, and I ended up subbing for him for like about, I don't know, a handful of shows. So I came in, I
Your
played
buddy
guitar.
got you into that gig.
Yeah, so Brad got me in there,
Brad.
And I did maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 shows, in 2010. And we talked about me kind of being, joining at some point, but it just wasn't like the timing wasn't right. And I was still working with Avril, and they had another guy, but it was a fine little taste. And then flash forward to I think it was 17. They were working on a live album, and they wanted some extra work in the studio. So I came in and helped. Well, it's funny. It's a live album, but there's always
I was just kind of processing
stuff.
that as you said that.
Yeah, I mean, they always clean everything up, and they want to maybe add some backgrounds or something. So I went in and helped with that, and then we got on well. John and myself and Brad, and we got on really well. And then they asked me to join. So I got in there. I kind of, officially joined, I guess, May or June of 18. So it's
cool.
going on almost, 5-6 years now. But yeah, it was all through friends, friendships and stuff like that. So, it kind of, it was kind of cool that there's a history there, going back many years. Which made it somewhat familiar. But who else were you asking about? I'm sorry.
Next, well, that was it. The Goo Goos was first.
Okay.
Next is David Lee Roth. How did you hook up with him? What was that like? I mean, to whatever extent you could be honest about it.
Yeah, it was a great. So I mean, it was one day. I mean, it was a day, but it was kind of a classic day. I'll try to make it. I'll try to make it succinct. I had gotten a call from a friend who worked at Henson Recording Studios, which is, one of the best, studios in town. And I think he was kind of a house guy, house engineer, but he would also produce a bunch of stuff. And he was producing a solo album for David Lee Roth. And he said, he called, and I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, he said, hey, producing this record for David Lee Roth, and we want someone to come and sing some harmonies. And I was like, well, why the hell would he need anybody to sing? He's great. And I'm a good singer, but I don't know. So he said, well, look, send some demos of you singing some couple tracks. And so I sent a few things over, and then he called the next day and he goes, yeah, Dave heard your voice and he wants you to come in. I said, all right, great. So
what year was this?
Oh my God. This might've been 2010. So This is going back a little bit. And so the funny part, and I have no problem sharing with this, because I think it's, to a degree that, when people talk about money in the music business, it's like this taboo thing, but this is kind of funny and germane to the story. So, the manager, there was a woman from his management company that called me and said, okay, you're coming in, what do you want to get paid for the session? And I was just so thrilled that it was David Lee Roth. I would have done it for nothing, basically. And I don't know, I never thought about it, but it just came out. I said, you know what, give me what the other guys are getting. Whatever the other guys, if you're bringing in other guys for this instrument or that instrument, because I knew they were hiring session guys for different things. I said, just give me what the other guys are getting. She said, okay. So I didn't know what I was going to get. I just went in. So I go in, and I get in there, and Alex Gibson was the producer, and he's there, and then here comes Roth, and it's a strange thing, because I was envisioning him doing splits, in the Jump video. Totally
different context.
But that was like 20 some years, past, and his hair wasn't what the same, or what was left
Diamond
of it, or what,
Dave.
it was, but he was cool. He was super cool, and he was asking me a bunch of questions about musical direction. Like he was like fascinated by that, and he was asking me, like, we walked right in, but we chit chatted for maybe 5 minutes. And then I was in the booth, they started playing the first song, and I said, okay, so what are you looking for? And I assumed that they wanted harmonies, or some kind of harmony parts, or oohs and ahs or something. And so he plays the first song, and it was called "Giddy Up," which is a classic Dave. It's like, okay, and the chorus is literally "Giddy up." That's basically the chorus. And I said, okay, you want me to try to do a harmony? And he goes, no, I want you to double me. And I said, well, that's interesting, because normally you double yourself, if you want it to sound. And I said, okay, well, what kind of a tone are you looking for? And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I can kind of skew, a little deeper, or a little more raspy, or a little cleaner, or whatever. And he was like, you can do that? And I said, well, yeah, I can kind of, lean one way or the other. And he was like, he was blown away by that. He didn't know that you could kind of change the tone of your voice to because, he's Dave, and what comes out is what comes. It's amazing. Right. And he goes, and he looks at me dead in the eye and says, try to sound exactly like me. And I was like, wait a minute,
you can do that.
Yeah, I was like, so I'm like in a weird place, because I don't want to make fun of him. I mean, I can kind of do
the guy.
I can kind of do that, a little bit of that Louis Armstrong Dave thing, but I don't want to like be a caricature of. I didn't know what to do, so I was like, okay, well, I'll try. So I go in and I sing the double, and I just sing a couple takes, and they said great, and then we went to the next chorus, and I did it again, and that was it. No harmonies, nothing else. And so we're moving on to the second song.
I want you to sound like
we're like 20 minutes in, and I'm on song 2. So we comes in, and then this song is called "Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill."
Okay.
which starts with the same melody as the original. Somewhere over the Rainbow Bar and Grill. You know, it's like it's a classic fucking classic Dave, right? So I heard a harmony like right off the bat, and I was like, oh, I hear a harmony. And he goes, no harmonies, doubles. And I was like, okay, here we go. So I go in and I do the doubles, and
so you didn't even really get to do what
I literally
why
just
people
sang,
want you to do.
I just sang exactly what he sang, the same thing with my voice, and he was into it. And I'll never forget this. He comes on the talk back, and I'm way far back. It was a big room. Beautiful big room at Henson, and I saw him in the thing, and he goes on the talk back, and he goes, hey man, that sounds great, listen to this, and he plays it back, and I was like, oh my god, like he's digging this, like it's great. So we're on song 3, it's like 30 minutes in, 40 minutes
so
in.
We're just cranking.
We're just moving. So I forget the name of the third song, and again I heard a harmony. I said, hey, I think I hear a harmony. Nope, no harmony. Or maybe we tried something, and then he said no, and he wanted me to sing a different thing, and then, I did the double, and then I sang a take, and there's like a expected amount of time between when you finish a take and when the talk back comes in and they give you direction on what to do next. And the normal amount of time came and went. So we finished the take, they stopped the tape, and then I'm not hearing anything from them for like 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds. And I see them behind the glass conversing. And it was something suspect about the time. So I said, okay, well, I wonder what's going on. And then Dave walks out of the room, and Alex comes in. He goes, hey, Jim, come over to the side. So I go to the side, and he said, okay, so, we're done. And I said, oh, we're done with the song. And he goes, well, we're done for the day. And I was like, oh, I said, did I do something? He goes, no, you're doing great. But now Dave's hearing something else. He's hearing like an old blues man, something voice, some different thing, like an old man blues guy that he wants to try or something. He's like, this is very normal for him. And I felt horrible. So I'm fired after 40 minutes, So, so I get my stuff, and I'm kind of like shuffling out, and I come into the control room to grab my backpack or whatever it was. And Dave comes back in. And I said, hey, man, I'm really sorry. And he goes, no, man. He goes, you're a great singer. You're a great singer. And I'm just hearing something different now. I want to, but, thank you. And I start walking. He goes, no. Hey, I got to take care of you. And he's going to pay me. And I said, well, dude, I've been here like 45 minutes. It's like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. He goes, no. You worked, you sang, you get paid. So he pulls out a checkbook and he starts writing the thing. And he spell my name, and he writes the thing. So I said, okay. So he comes over and he hands me a check, and I immediately fold it and put it in my pocket. I didn't want to look. So I walk out, and I felt terrible. And I remember like walking out to the car, and like Slash pulls up in an Aston Martin. It was one of those just kind of weird, it's like, because Henson's like full of stars, and it's just like, I felt shitty that I got fired. So I called my wife, and as I called, I pull out the check, and then I open it up, and my eyes kind of widened up, and she goes, what are you doing? Because she knew I was in the session. I said, well, babe, I said,
good
here's
news and bad news.
Here's the bad news. I got fired within an hour. I said, the good news is we're going out for a fancy dinner. He wrote me a check for $1,500.
You are kidding.
Yeah. I think I took a picture of it. Give me $1,500. Yeah. For 45 minutes.
You know what, man? That is really fucking cool.
It was awesome. And you know, after years later, I thought it's actually so much better of a story that I got fired because that's such a better story than just me going in and singing a couple tunes and it going well and then getting the hell out of there. Like I was in and out within an hour, and the dude just totally hooked me up. And
that was
it was awesome.
Awesome of him.
He even said this line too, again, that I never forgot. He goes, you know, when he said, he was complimenting me and he goes, listen, if you ever need any references, you have him call me. And it's like, I thought it was the oddest thing. No one's ever asked for a reference.
Because you're getting fired.
Well, first of all, no one talks about references in the music business, right? Like no one ever says, hey, did you have references? Second of all, I'm getting fired within an hour. Third of all, it's David Lee Roth. Which is, hey, listen, I'm up for this gig with Maroon 5. They should call David Lee Roth and he's going to tell him that he fired me within an hour. It's like,
right. No,
he was such a strange, but it was cool.
That is
it was classy.
That's the nicest thing. I haven't heard anything negative. I've had a lot of guys who've worked with Dave, but everything that I've heard is always like crazy Dave, right?
You know, I mean,
like
look,
not crazy is the wrong word. Exuberant Dave.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But this is a wonderful story, man.
I have nothing but respect for him. I love his voice. You know, I wasn't, and it's funny because, you know, I know I'm in the minority, especially with guitar players. I was actually a big, Van Hagar fan. And I think part of it is because there's two reasons for this. I'm such a melody guy. And I think a lot of the melodies that Sammy Hagar and Van Halen wrote on those couple records are so great. Plus, being a keyboard player first, there's a lot of, you know, cool keyboards, you know, Dreams and, you know, Why Can't This Be Love? And, you know, a lot of these like cool keyboard things that were going on, obviously Jump notwithstanding. But I wasn't as big of a Dave fan early on. I grew to appreciate him and what he had done with them later in life as I started playing more guitar and stuff like that. But no, I love him. And, you know, it's always tricky when you work with someone that you idolize or that you love their music, because sometimes you have to separate the artist from the person. And I've met guys throughout the years that I really, you know, I've heard a lot of stories, especially about the guys that I love, that, you know, may or may not be the nicest cats.
Meeting your hero, you know, be careful meeting your heroes sometimes.
Kind of thing. But this was one that was great. And I look back on the experience with nothing but, you know, fondness and I just love, and people genuinely like that story because it's a classic.
Fantastic story, man. Honey, we're going out to dinner tonight. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Cher. I've met a lot of guys. I've had tons of guys on my show who work with Cher.
She's she's like the Law and Order SVU of the music business. Like if you're an actor in New York, you've been on Law and if you're worth your salt.
So funny.
It's her and Shakira. Like they've employed. I was like, oh yeah, you did the Shakira gig. Okay, yeah, okay. It's like
Al did Shakira, didn't he?
Everybody, Button, you know. Everybody's done that gig.
The Law and Order SVU of the music business.
Cher, I think Shakira's even more guys have gone through that gig than the Cher, but maybe not because Cher's been around for 60 years. Cher was a great, interesting experience. Paul Mirkovich is where I met him, and we would then later work together on the Rockstar TV shows. But Paul Mirkovich is an incredible musician, and he's a longtime musical director in town here. He had the Idol gig at one point, and it just, earlier on, and he kind of got it messed up. I mean, he's one of the best, like incredible musician, incredible vocalist and piano player and musical director. He had been working with Cher for, I think, like 16, 17, 18 years off and on. And he'd be in, he's a big part of it. He would sing a duet with her every night, the Peter Cetera song, After All. And it was like a moment, and I think she comes out on like a little boat or something, she was doing that with the Vegas thing. But, I think what had happened was, this farewell tour had been going on for years and years, and it would just never end. They just kept extending it. And I think that was right around the time when he had his at least one or two of his daughters. And, when you're on the road that long and your wife's at home, they need help. And I
Yeah.
think it had just gotten a little much. I think he kind of decided, hey, I need to be home for a little bit here. And they just kept extending it. And so he needed someone to replace him it was probably only going to be 4 months, maybe 3 months, 4 months. It ended up being actually closer to a year because they kept extending it. But they were trying
someone to replace him as an MD?
Not as a musical director. So the other keyboard player became the MD, and I just came in to fill in on keyboards and vocals and sing a duet with her.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was kind of hard for them to find a guy that could do those things. And I'm sure, especially back then, I was young and handsome, and it's like, Cher, it's got to someone that could present okay.
No, you gotta,
I had to
go on stage with
I had to like make a demo of me, singing the Peter Cetera song, his parts and play some keyboard stuff. I got to say, it was probably the most challenging keyboard job that I've ever done, because there are jazz, which, I went to Berklee, but I'm not a jazz guy. I mean, I can play some stuff, but that's not my, I don't play jazz a lot. There's jazz influence, there's classical stuff, there's kind of bebop-y stuff. It's almost musical theater-esque, right? Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. This was also my first time working with an incredibly rigid show where tracks are there's time code. She has screens, everything is locked up, and there's nothing loose about it. It's incredibly tight, and it's incredibly scheduled, and everything is click, and everything is like really, really mapped out. So I had to, and also this was also, I think, my first multi-keyboard, like this was like a yes situation where you got like all these keyboards, and it was like volume pedals and swells and changing patches, and it was very involved. So
there's a lot to learn in a short period of time.
God, it was. My wife still remembers me, and that we were in this tiny apartment in Studio City, and I was playing Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves like 8,000 times, and I had to do, and there were musical interludes that were kind of heavy on keyboard stuff. And
on that particular song, as a matter of fact, there is. I know that song.
Quite a lot of quite involved. It was very involved. And the harmonies and so, to make matters worse, this is in the middle of their tour, so there's no rehearsing. I mean, I'm coming in, and I gotta jump in the middle of the tour. So the way that we were going to do it, she had, I think, 4 nights scheduled, 3 or 4 nights scheduled at a massive arena in Mexico City. Massive, like 20,000, whatever. So the idea was that I was going to do a sound check, do rehearsal at a sound check the first day, watch the show, do the sound check the next day and watch the show. And then the third night I would play. I think that's it was something like that. So we do the thing, and then we did the second sound check, and I was, thought I would play the next night. And after the second sound check, I think Paul just said, just play tonight. Why don't you just do it? And I was like, I'm not, I don't know. And I just jumped in. But I will say, I was never comfortable on that job. I never
of the
felt
intricacies.
Well, there were a couple things, and as it went on, I actually developed it. It manifested. It was anxiety, because it was kind of a high pressure. I mean, there's like it's like 7 musicians or 8 musicians. It's a big band. There's people doing aerial silks and twirls and dancers. I mean, it's a big production. And then singing a duet with an icon. I mean, my mother was like, in heaven when she came to see the show, and she loved Cher forever, and so it was a big deal. But and what happened was, there was the song called "Walking in Memphis," which the great Mark Cohen song. And I don't know if you know that song well, but
no, I don't know it well. I vaguely know it, actually.
It's a great song, and it has a very signature piano part in the very beginning, but it's all anticipated. It's all off the click, or off the beat. So sometimes Cher would get off with the beat because it's a little odd. And one time we had a horrible train wreck where we couldn't correct because we're locked in on the tracks.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, some people might have been able to fix it or do it on the fly, but it was bad. It was like, you know, she was just ahead of us the whole time. And it was just like very embarrassing to me. And I mean, I think she was following my part in the beginning, which I didn't mess up technically, but she got off and I couldn't help get her back in.
Right.
So I think that kind of messed with me a little bit. And my hands.
Did she say anything to you?
No. I don't even think she knew. I mean, it was I mean, we're talking like an eighth note off the whole way. So it just might have sounded like a little delayed, you know, or something. But my hands would get freezing before the show would start, like really cold. And they would thaw out immediately after that song was over. So, and of course that was
obviously
like
a stress.
It was something. Yeah. And there was like, that was like 80% of the way through the show. The song was like 4 till the end. So as soon as we finished that song, my hands would get normal and then the rest of the show would be fine. But it manifested physically, like my nerves about it. I was fine. I wasn't messing up, you know, nightly or anything like that. Not too much that I could recall. But it just, I just never got comfortable on that gig. And so, but I will say this story. So this is talk about a class act. So the idea was, again, when Paul approached me for the job, he said, look, I've been, and at this time it was the farewell tour. The final shows were supposed to be at the Hollywood Bowl. They were supposed to do 2 or 3 nights at the Hollywood Bowl. And that was it. She was supposed to be done touring forever. Right. So it was a big deal for Cher to end it. And he said, when I got hired, he said, look, I would like to come back and do the last week or 2. And I want to be, you know, resume my spot for the last few shows. And I said, of course. And it's your gig. I'm just filling in. So we were in Australia, which was maybe, I don't know, a month or so before the tour was going to end. And, her managers called me into the little room and I was like, all right, I'm getting the boot, you know, cause you know, it was kind of starting to wind down. And, they said, hey, you know, as you know, we got like, you know, 3-4 weeks left or whatever. And Paul is going to come back for the final few weeks. And I said, yeah, of course. And then they said, this was so surprising. They said, we heard, you know, Cher heard that you play guitar as well, because I was just playing keyboards. And I said, yeah. And he said, all right, well, what we're going to do is when Paul comes back, we're just going to put you on guitar and you're going to stay and do the rest with us because Cher said you're a part of this now. And we're not going to let Jimmy go. And I thought it was like the classiest thing that anyone could have ever done.
Oh my God. Yeah. You don't hear stories really, like that.
It really kind of was incredible to me. And I'll never forget that. And I'll always be grateful for that because that showed me what a real artist, you know, what a good human being, like, because the funny part was, so, you know, that was also my first experience with this kind of A party and B party separation within a band and an artist. Okay. So for, you know, I'm sure your listeners know, but most of the time, you know, if you're traveling with an artist, especially if it's a young artist, like, you know, maybe it's Michelle Branch or somebody, everybody's on the same bus because they just don't have enough money, or you're on, you know, you're in a van or whatever. When I worked with Cher had her own bus. She had her own, day-to-day manager. And then there was a separate manager for the band. And it was very segregated, very separate. And I remember after a few months of being out on the road, I was feeling a little conscious about the fact that I didn't really have a connection with her. I would see her at the show and we would do a prayer circle, you know, that she did before the shows. But I didn't have a personal connection with her, which is something I had never had with any other band or artist I had worked with before. I knew them as, you know, we would have meals and whatever. And I remember being on the bus one day, and the guy named Dave, who was the front of house sound guy, he could see that I was a little down or something. And he said, "What's up?" And I said, "Well, I had just been in the venue and I walked past Cher and she was with her, you know, group of people and, you know, her entourage, and she didn't say anything to me or, you know, and I felt like, well, I felt like kind of invisible. And he goes, I haven't talked to her in 2 years. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess that's like kind of normal,
that's
right?
the deal.
So I felt better. I was like, oh, I guess
Yeah.
that's like the way it is. So especially given that, because at times I felt very separate from the whole thing, and everybody else had been there for years and she knew them well. And, you know, obviously I was also younger by, you know, 5-10 years from everybody
Yeah.
else who was in the band, which was kind of a theme for me. But, you know, for her to do that and to keep me on at the end, my mother flew out from New Jersey, you know, and got to see me play the Hollywood Bowl. And I think they even added the song Jesse, Just Like Jesse James, which we had not been playing, but that had a nice acoustic part. So I played that. So it was really cool.
That's very cool, man. Yes, that's a very nice story. You know, really nice story. Both of them, man. David Lee Roth and Cher.
Yeah, I'm here to spread the good, you know, the good cheer. You know what I mean?
Good man.
We can
Dude,
talk
so
some shit about some people too. I mean,
Let it loose. Do you want to?
look, if it warrants it, I mean, you know, I'm not gonna go out. I mean, you're the one asking the questions. I'm just answering.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. Who was an asshole to you, and what did they do?
No comment.
You've played some massive stadiums. Tell me one or two experiences that were particularly meaningful to you solely due to the size of the crowd. And I got to believe, I just learned this recently. Mexico City, I didn't know this. That's the most populated city in the Western Hemisphere.
We do big shows there. We do big shows there. Those were some huge crowds. Like with Cher. Some of the biggest were Shakira was maybe the largest. I mean, Glastonbury. Glastonbury was cool. I don't love festivals, to be honest. I don't like being around too many people, especially at this point in my life. I like less people, and I'm not
You're
a festival.
old.
Yeah, I don't like festivals, but I never loved festivals because you're always rushed. Okay, so festivals, you don't really have a proper sound check. You're getting rushed, and you're using rental gear half the time, and you're kind of, you know, it's very, you don't feel like it's your show at a festival.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I don't typically like those. Glastonbury, I got to meet the Edge. That was cool. I mean, he wasn't
cool.
like necessarily super warm to me, but you know, being Irish and you know, having family that comes from Ireland, and I love U2 so much. He was there hanging out. I got to meet him. That was really cool, and I got a picture. So that was great. But the sheer size of that crowd is insane. Most of those shows with her, I mean, she's such a big international star. I mean, the Rock in Rios and those are just massive. The Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, obviously with Avril Lavigne, that was pretty memorable. Just because that place is huge as well, and interesting. Maybe one of the coolest for me, being from Jersey, Giant Stadium. We opened up for Bon Jovi. I mean, there were probably 8 bands, but we were one in the middle there, and I got to meet John Bon Jovi, and I had met him before.
Who you with then?
That was with Michelle Branch, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So she had a couple of hits at the time, and you know, being able to play Giant Stadium on the same bill as Bon Jovi, especially my 15-year-old self, was kind of you know, dream fulfillments there. So in ways that was pretty cool. But you know, honestly, I don't, you know, once it gets to 5, 10, 15,000, you know, it doesn't really. It's all the same, you know. I much prefer a smaller venue. I much prefer to be able to see people in the crowd and kind of make some connections. You know, after the 15th row, I can't see anybody anyway. So you know, but yeah, you know, size of venue, it's okay. I mean, I'm glad that I've done that. But you know, I don't have any aspiration to play specific places really anymore. I like theaters a lot, actually, just because of the intimacy and the sound. Also, as our one of our techs, great. Yeah. I was going to say, one of our techs always says, rock and roll is an indoor sport. Okay, and so you know, when you have to deal with the sound outside venues and half roofs and, you know, metal roofs and half sides, it's just, No, and then lighting, and you're playing when it's still light out, or no, indoors. Remember, inside is much more air conditioning. Yeah, I'm into all that.
Well, especially nowadays where it's so friggin' hot. God, you guys, a lot of guys will come down here, and the guys will come down here to Tampa in August. Like, hey, Craig, you want to come to the show? I'm like, dude, I can't thank you enough, but no.
We started our tour in Florida. We started the tour at late July in Florida.
You were in Clearwater, I think, right?
It was awful.
Yeah, you were at the Sound, and it's just too hot to see a show in the outside and here in the summer.
Sweaty,
it's miserable.
It's no good. It's not good.
I want to talk to you about being the MD, music director, because you have done this quite often. I was curious what specific skill sets you've developed, or do you think you have that create this demand for you? That they're happy that because it's a comfort position for the artist.
Yeah. I didn't even know what a musical director was before really kind of becoming one, or just watching some guys, do some things. One of the ways I describe it, which I think is easy for people to kind of equate, is that when you go into a recording studio, you hire a producer. Okay, well then, when you go to play live, who's running it? Who's when you make a film, there's a director, right? Somebody's got to be the guy.
Yeah.
That when there are questions, that person has the answers. When there are creative things that need to be created or worked out, and that's the kind of guy that you want. Somebody that can relate to every musician and artist. Every MD situation is different. Some artists want more things than others. I remember when I first started working with Weezer, which was a very strange ask, because first of all, I love Weezer. I love their music. I didn't even know why they needed a musical director, because I think Rivers Cuomo is a genius, and I assumed that he ran the band. It took me a while to figure out kind of why I was there. But one of the things that we did was we had a phone call, and he told me what he wanted out of me, which that's such a relief. Was really helpful. It was really helpful because we had kind of had a preliminary conversation before, and I didn't really know what I was going to be doing there. And then I think a ball got dropped somewhere very early on. And he said, all right, let's get on a call, and I'm going to tell you what I expect of you. It's kind of very direct. And
I think, but when you're hiring someone from a job, isn't that
no, it was great.
Appropriate?
It was great. And it really, at least I knew what I was there for kind of after that. But some artists want you to help with a set list, kind of picking songs, order of songs, segues of songs, all that kind of stuff. Some artists don't want you messing with that. They want to choose the songs, and they want to, they don't want any input with that. I think the biggest thing, one of the most challenging things, is to be able to speak to other musicians from an intelligent place. But you have to do it. First of all musicians are insecure, and we all have egos, and it's like nobody wants to be told how to play their thing, especially at a high level. Everybody in that room usually is worth their salt. They've done a million jobs, so nobody wants to be corrected. So it's just like most things in life. It's not what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
So, learning how to communicate. 90% of this stuff is communication. So being able to understand the situation and say, okay, well, this guy keeps messing this part up. I don't want to embarrass him. I've already pointed it out once. Oh, hey, I think you missed that part. So, the first time, it's like, okay, hey, did I hear something, or whatever? And then it's like, okay, well, how do you say this to somebody when they've messed something up 4 times, without embarrassing them, or calling them out in front of a room full of not only other musicians, but, there's assistants and there's managers and there's people around, there's that's a whole thing. Then there's the whole, kind of middleman between a manager and an artist. So a manager will say, hey, why aren't you guys playing this song? Or, she doesn't sound good on this track. Why don't you, why don't you figure out what's going on there? Or, hey, these people really want, maybe it's a corporate show. And then, they requested this song or the cover. So can you add a cover in? And then you got to figure out, so there's a liaison too between, either, A&R person, manager, and then artist. Sometimes they will use a musical director as a buffer or a shield, in times. And sometimes you kind of are stuck in a really tough spot. That's the most challenging part, I think, of being an MD at times. I mean, the musical stuff, it's like, it's challenging, but especially if you have other guys who are great, then it's usually really collaborative and good.
So what do you do in a situation where someone does keep messing the part up and you've pointed it out to them a couple of times, say, hey, like you said, which I thought was good, I'm hearing this, are you doing this there? Or what do you, tell me, explain what you're doing there. But when he or she continues to do that, how do you typically say, hey, let's take a few minutes break, and then you call that person over and say, hey?
Well, I'm sure I messed this up about 100 times before I figured out a great way to handle that situation. And it's funny because I read Mark Rivera's book. Do you know Mark Rivera, the saxophone player for Billy Joel for forever? Yeah, I read his book, and in a lot of ways, it was like reading my own book, which I've been writing things down for 20 years. That may be a book someday, I hope. But it was like looking in the mirror, and he was talking about how it's something that I've actually done, a similar thing. But one way to do it, which is really great, is to flip it on, especially if you're playing in the band. You say, hey, let's break this down. Hey, I want to go over the harmonies on their own. And you kind of just, pull it apart a little bit. And then, hey, we're just going to work on this. Or, hey, I just want to hear what the drums and bass are doing. Cause there's a lot of tracks. Everybody's playing a lot of stuff. Let's just hear you two guys. I just want to hear what you guys are doing. And usually in the process of you kind of going in and dissecting, it will correct itself.
They'll flesh it out.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah,
especially if it's a pro. I mean, again, there is a big difference between band musicians, or there can be a big difference between a band musician and a hired guy. There's different guys. And some guys are unbelievably great in their band, but you would never hire them for someone else's band ever.
Sure.
Like they could never do it. And that's not that they're not good. It's just they have their thing, and their thing works in the context of their band.
Totally get that.
But they're not guys that are going to get hired to go and play on a record that Ryan Tedder's producing or something. There's that guy. And then there's the guys that can kind of go in and be anybody, any day.
Guys like yourself, the session touring guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to think, I think one of the reasons that I've been successful is the versatility. And that's probably, one of the things I'm most proud of is to be, I mean, look, it's all pop and rock, but there's a pretty wide gap between, playing with Cher and playing with Poison. I mean, those are pretty different musical landscapes. I mean, and then when you kind of bring in, I remember one of the most fulfilling days that I can remember, I had worked with a soul singer named Mark Broussard. I don't know if you know who he is.
I know who he is.
He's incredible. I mean, when you talk about vocal talent, like the guy's voice is unbelievable. It's just so much soul. And I mean, he could sing the phone book and you'd be interested. So I had worked on a couple of records with him, and I've written songs with him and produced him. But I had, when he would come to town, I wasn't like in his band, but he would travel. Sometimes he'd bring a keyboard player and sometimes he wouldn't. This was one time he was coming through and he didn't have a keyboard player. And he was playing the Roxy, and he said, "Hey, Jimmy, come down and hit with us." I mean, that's where it's like complete opposite of playing with Cher. It's like I literally roll in with my Wurlitzer. I don't know the songs really. I played on them 5 years ago or whatever. I sort of knew, and you just play. He's that kind of artist, and he's great in that. Very spontaneous and very off the cuff. And maybe he starts playing a cover you don't know, some old Sam Cooke tune or whatever, and you just kind of figure it out. So I remember we were rehearsing for Paul Stanley's tour, which again, childhood fulfillment, being able to play Kiss songs with Paul Stanley. Yeah. So we were at SIR in Hollywood, and we had a rehearsal from, I don't know, maybe 11 or whatever, it was noon to 6 or something. So I was there playing electric guitar with Paul Stanley, doing, Rock and Roll All Night and all these amazing tunes. And then at night I went and brought my Whirly and played a set with Mark Broussard at the Roxy that night. And that was an incredible day. That was an incredible day of music. Just to be able to live in both of those worlds was great. And that's what's amazing about music. I mean, if you can do that, I mean, God, that's an incredible way to spend a day,
That is a really nice day. I was thinking I was hoping you weren't going to say, when I asked you, what's the workaround, that some people will just text the guy, like, stop fucking doing that or something.
I don't think I would ever do that.
No, not you. I didn't think you would do it, but I could see, like, in today's day and age where it's like,
maybe
because communication is not exactly like a skill that a lot of people have.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse. I have artists that are so in their phones, when you're trying to write a song or even do a vocal take, and they're looking at TikTok and is whatever, and it's just, I don't know, but that's just part of the challenges of where we are today. But
my kids will come over.
Go ahead.
And my oldest in particular, and he'll be I'll be sitting at the kitchen table, we're having a conversation. He picks up his phone. I just walk away. Because because I'm sick and tired of saying, you're an adult, you're 33, man. I'm not telling you how to behave, but I'm not going to sit here and allow you to behave that way and participate.
Right.
But when I get, I'm sorry, but whatever. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's just part of the new world, I guess.
The new world, yeah. You are. My question is, you're a modern musician, and you're a modern musician that you're involved in a number of different roles. And I think you have to be in today's day and age, unless you have a Guns N' Roses gig or a Who gig. I think that it's a necessity if you want to survive in be only in music. But you tour, you do sessions, you write, you collaborate on writing with others, you produce music, you license music. And first of all, I respect your hustle, and I think it is a necessity. But I was curious, is there one of these roles you like most, or is there one that you'd like to do more of? And how did you get into producing? Because you produce quite a bit. It's not like, I have tons of people on the show and, I produce, and I mean, they're open to producing and I'm not making fun of everybody, but you got to start somewhere.
Sure.
But you actually produce a lot of music.
Yeah. It's a good question, and it's a hard one for me to answer. I just got done touring for 4 months straight, pretty much. So when the timing of that question is always going to be a factor. I think having a balance. I mean, look, life's all about balance, right? I mean, that's probably when I feel the best, is when there's a good balance with all of them. Playing live is a unique experience. It really is an incredible thing to do. The travel that is involved is incredibly taxing, especially at my age, and I mean, look, touring is a younger person's game, in a lot of ways, but I've been really fortunate to work with, very successful artists that do it at their, the levels that we're
Sprinter van.
the levels that we do it at are some of the best. That being said, it's still very, very tiring because your eating schedule, your sleep schedule, and you're just it takes its toll. But then again, I've also felt that way in the studio too. I mean, you get studio tan, right? It's like you're in the same room every day. It's dark, or I got this new, I'm in a new place where I can open up the windows, and that's great. But I'll do marathon writing sessions. An artist will come in from Toronto or Seattle, and they'll only be here for a week or two. So I need to hustle that. Like to me, it's like somewhat of a numbers game when you talk about creativity. There was there's a book called Atomic Habits that I just read, and it had a really interesting experiment that they were talking about photography students, and it had the teacher separated them into two groups, and he said, okay, this group over here, I'm going to grade you based on how many photos you take, and at the end of it, you're gonna have a grade based on how many you take. You're going to produce a certain photo, and then this other group, you're just going to take one picture, and you can and you can do whatever you got to do, but you're only going to hand in one, and then you're going to do 1 million pictures over here, and then they would show the pictures at the end. The best pictures were always of the group that took more pictures, always. And it's where that works is it's just you're just doing it, and doing it and doing it and doing it. And I think when it comes to writing songs and producing, just, you can be precious. I think sometimes you can be precious here and there, but to me, it's like, just go. Like, okay, let's work on a tune, and we're going to work on something for 2-3 hours. And I think I'm one of my strengths in that arena. I don't always know what it is, but I know what it isn't. And if something's not working, I will abandon it. I will, if we spend 2 hours, I've done this before, and I think people are kind of shocked by it, but it almost always works. We'll work on something, and I really try, we kind of, okay, this is the idea, we're working on it. And then if a couple hours in, I'm not inspired to keep going, or it's like not feeling good, I'll say, you know what? Do you love this? Or is it like, is our enthusiasm, waning? Is it just me, or do you really love this? Because if you love it, let's keep hammering. Yeah. But if you're like, and you're just kind of going along because I'm going along, and most of the time they'll be like, it's okay, and I'll say, I think we can beat it. Let's check something out. So we'll go take a break, and then we'll come back, and I'll go on a different instrument or do something, or pull up a sample, or blah blah blah. So, when someone comes in, it's a long-winded answer, but someone comes in and our goal is to write a handful of good songs. We'll spend 3-4 days and write 8 ideas, because they're not all going to be good. And so, if you write 8 ideas in 4 days, there's probably 2 or 3 good ones. Yeah. And if you're being honest, and that's part of my job too, is to kind of bring that out of everybody, say, okay, this song's really cool, but I don't think it's your thing. Is it like, is this your vibe? I don't know if that really is your vibe. Maybe that's a song for somebody else. We can finish it at another time. But if we're here to write songs for your record and your EP or whatever it is, shaping, especially with young artists, right? If someone can sing, that doesn't necessarily mean they know who they are as an artist. And those are completely different things. So my thing has always been a bit of a numbers thing. Let's crank a bunch of tunes. And then at the end of the week, we'll be really confident about, which one, like there'll be 2 or 3 that are like, okay, these are worth pursuing. These are worth taking the next step to fully produce them and to bring in other musicians or to spend time and money. Whereas these other songs, they're okay. And, or, you know what, I know an artist that this would be great for, but it's not for you, whatever it is, and stuff like that.
That's really interesting, man.
You know, so that's where the whole idea of just doing it, you know.
Yeah, that's extreme. I really like that. So what is your response to the flip? I'm going to be devil's advocate here a little bit. The producer who says, man, my philosophy is let's get something, no matter how long it takes, let's get something, let's flesh that one thing out that means everything. What is your response to that? Not like in an argumentative, but like if
I don't think it's an
either
either or. Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. I think once you have an idea that you like, then you move to the next steps of, you know, producing and evolving. And, you know, as my friend Marshall Altman says, it's only between 8 and 10 that matters. So once you start heading down a path that you feel good about, then you go all in on that song and you go all in on that production. And I mean, there's plenty of times where, you know, to bring up somebody like David Levita, I mean, I can play on most things and do what I need to do on certain productions. And I know that my abilities will give me a really good chance of creating something great. But then there are songs and projects where I know my limitations. And he just worked on something earlier this year with me that I'm producing for a really cool singer-songwriter named Jake Fields. He may be going under a different name, I'm not sure, but this project, I just heard, I just was like, this needs David Levita. Like, that's just what it needs.
He's always busy, that guy. Always busy.
Well,
his credit.
He has just a very unique way of playing music, and he has a voice on the instrument that is, for me, for my money, incredible. And so in that project, I just said, you know what, I think it really needs this guy, you know, and it wasn't really in the budget necessarily because, you know, this is all indie stuff, and
sure,
you know, you have to have these conversations, and then you go to the artist and say, listen, I think this needs this guy. And, you know, and then it becomes a trust. Okay. You know, the artist has to go, well, you know, why do we need somebody else? You can play, and, you know, or I can play, he can play, you know, Jake plays guitar, you know, but he trusted me, and we've been working together for years, and
sure,
it was funny. It was actually a cool session, and I hadn't seen David in a while, and came over, and, you know, we got all set up, and he's got a million pedals and all this stuff. And I think within the first 30 seconds of him playing, I looked over, and Jake was like, you know, like it was just one of those things that I knew in my gut. Yeah. I mean, look, it's all subjective. Who knows, you know, what's right.
But he's paying you for your subjectivity.
I was pretty sure. Cool. I was pretty sure David was going to bring something to this project that no one else could, or that I couldn't. And so, you know, that's what you got to do sometimes is, you know your limitations and know when to bring in other guys. I mean, so, yeah.
Thanks, man. That's really interesting. And I guess it goes to what you basically said is what you're really fleshing out is not necessarily, it happens to be like the quantity turns out it works better. But what you're really looking for is this your thing? And that's the, you know, is your heart and soul in this? And I think that's where the value of, especially of what you're doing, comes in. Because if it's not, you shouldn't be making it.
Well, there's a big question, and this is something that I've been formulating for a while now. There's a big question, Mark, about American Idol and The Voice and these shows, and why has there not been a star that has come out of these shows in the last 10 years? The Voice has done 2 shows per calendar season for 10 years. I think now they're on one per season now. So, but they've done like 22 seasons of this show. They've had 2 minuscule hits but essentially no Kelly Clarkson has come out of there. You know, no Adam Lamberts or Jennifer Hudson's, and why is that? My answer to that is, and also with this TikTok stuff, you can have a viral moment. You can have that. But does that mean you can then go out and sell tickets and play a show?
You transfer that into ticket sales.
Are you becoming like, there are TikTok stars, but like, are they really stars? Like, so there are, to me, it breaks down into 3 categories. Just singing, good singers that are just have good voices that can sing well. Recording artists, that's a separate thing. And then rock stars, that's another thing. A lot of the recording artists and rock stars have all 3, but a lot of them don't. Bruce Springsteen would never make it past the first round on The Voice. Okay. Mick Jagger would not be in the top 10 on American Idol. They wouldn't make it. Singing other people's songs isn't their thing. They're not classically
Very interesting, man.
They're not classically perfect vocalists. Aretha Franklin would win all of the shows. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
But getting back, the reason I bring this up and to try to answer your question again, this is the way my mind works. I apologize to go all these different places.
No, this is very interesting, man. You don't have to apologize at all.
Artists, a real artist has something to say. That's the difference between a recording artist and a singer. An artist, Madonna is a great recording artist. She's not a great singer. She's a good singer. She's not Aretha Franklin singer. But she's a great artist, and she's a rock star. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So there are Tom Waits. That dude's voice sounds like gravel on a road. He's not a great singer.
Right.
He's a great recording artist. He has something to say. His lyrics have depth. He has interesting productions that are soulful, but he's not a classic. He's not Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury would win The Voice or American Idol, right? He also happened to be a rock star, and he had something to say. That's why we know his name. That's why that's why I'm talking about that dude 40 years later, because he had all 3. So that's where, when someone hires me to help produce, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help them write songs and produce, but I'm trying to find out, do they have something to say?
Yeah.
And half the time they don't. And that's fine too. Sure, there's hits. There are hits. You can have a hit without having something to say. I mean, I'm Too Sexy was a hit.
Right.
It's like, but that's
but
not
you can't make a career.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a career. They'll have a song and maybe they can play for 10 years off one hit. But a real artist, that's going to sustain, that will have a multi-year, multi-decade career, Bruno Mars, they have something to say. They can sing well enough. They don't have to be the best singers, but they have something to say. And then there's the rock star people, right?
Yeah.
Who just walk in a room. We've all been around them. They have a thing. That's why they call that show The X Factor, right? Because it's this thing that you can't put your finger on it. You go, there's something about that person. Who is that guy? I don't know what his deal is, but there's something about that guy. Lenny Kravitz walks in a room. He's a rock star. He doesn't even do anything. Yeah. He just walks in. I mean, he's got the glasses and the chains and the tats, and he's cool and he's in shape.
Yeah.
He's handsome. And but he also plays up. I'm talking about marketing. Like, you've never seen that dude without sunglasses ever.
No.
I mean, if that dude's that guy goes to Ralph's to get milk, he looks
like Lenny Kravitz.
He looks like he's ready. He could go on stage at any time.
Yeah.
At any time. You never see that dude in a hoodie and sweats, and Birkenstocks with socks. That's never going to happen. Lenny Kravitz will never do that, So,
it brings up another point, and I think you mentioned TikTok. I don't have TikTok. I'd have like Instagram. I don't need another. You can only have one serve, one master, sort of. I'm good with that. But I think a lot of the problem is people are trying to, everybody wants to be an influencer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, for a guy my age watching this, you know, it's really interesting to observe it. I think people get lost. There is a difference between being popular on TikTok and being a rock star and being an artist. And I think because everybody wants this, that's why, you know, people say, why is the music business, the state of the music, you know, it's not as prolific. The good artist is not as prolific. I think that's part of the problem. Everybody wants to be an artist on your phone, but that's different than, as you just very competently described. This is like the best conversation I've ever had about this. This is really fantastic, man. Thank you.
Well,
it's very smart.
So well, I've been on those shows. Okay. And one of the things that I'll never forget it. I remember being backstage at The Voice. I was actually, at this point, I was singing background. I was one of the background singers because, and talk about, you know, decisions that affect your career and your financial well-being or not. I was asked to be in the house band on The Voice. This is the quick rundown of it was, I had been playing with Avril for a long time, but she was on a bit of a break. And there was a tour about to start, but they kept postponing it, and it kind of was lull. There was a lull. And at this point in time, Paul Mirkovich got the job to be the musical director for The Voice. And he asked me if I wanted to be in the house band, which I did. However, I'm a very loyal person by nature. And I had been on a retainer with Avril for a while. And so, you know, she had been paying me to keep me around until she was ready to go do a show, a tour. And I said to the guys, look, I really would love to be on this show, but I've been on this retainer for almost a year waiting for this thing to happen, and it hasn't happened. And it just so happened that she was about to go right when they wanted to start on this show. And look, I could have bailed on her. And I think initially I was going to. And then I kind of said, I probably shouldn't do that because I don't know if I could sleep at night.
No, I think you did the right thing.
And I ended up staying on with her for another couple years. But and then when I came back, and you know, this was a little difficult because I had done 3 years of television shows for Mark Burnett. So it was 2 rock stars. It was Rockstar NXS, Rockstar Supernova, and there was another one called Star Maker that was with P. Diddy that didn't do so well on MTV. But I'd worked for Mark Burnett Productions for 3 years, and you know, it was great. And they said to me, "Hey, you're a part of the Mark Burnett family, and you know, your job will be here when you get back." Well, that didn't really happen, which ended up later being the case for Justin Derrico, who I love. But he's been going back and forth between Pink and The Voice for like 10 years. So whatever, blah, blah, blah. It happened. And I lost out on a really lucrative job in town, but it was kind of I chose that. But
had you not done that, it wouldn't have gone, you know, then your reputation.
I mean, you can't, well,
there's only degrees of loss to some extent. There's really no winning in a situation like that.
I mean, you know, look, hindsight, you know, I mean, look, I did the right moral thing, you know, for me. But that being said, I'm sorry, how did we get on that? What were we talking about before this?
About TikTok and stars and.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally lost where that was going. But
you were talking about that you were singing background vocals on The Voice.
I was on The Voice. Thank you. So when I came back, they said, look, well, the guitar player thing has come and gone, but we need some background singers. So I said, okay, I'll come in. And so I ended up just kind of standing there as a background singer for a little while. But it didn't work out because I just have too much music in me. I can't just sit there and sing oohs and ahs for 8 hours a day. But when I remember sitting there and there was the coolest thing to me about The Voice is the whole chair turnaround thing, because you can't see the person, right? That's the hook of the show. And to me, that's the best part of it. And it's kind of over within the first week or two. But we were sitting there and I was standing next to a set of parents. and their kid was out there and they were singing, about to sing, and people's chairs were not facing them. And the mom turned to the dad, and just the way she said it, she was like, please turn around, and she had, I could tell she was in agony and pain, hoping for her child who was out there singing to get a shot. But in that moment, I thought to myself, even if they do turn around, it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean they're going to do anything. Like, if they don't have a hit song, they don't have a career, even if they win the thing. And this is even like the first or second season of the thing. But I knew, because I know that without a song, you don't have a career. So that's where that whole thing about singers, those people on those shows are great singers, and they sing other people's songs really, really, really well.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have a voice that when you sing on this microphone pops out of the speakers and grabs people. A great example of that is Bret Michaels. Okay. I love Bret. He's one of my favorite guys ever. And he's the most classy dude. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a guy who would say anything negative about Bret Michaels. He's the best guy ever.
I've heard this several times.
And Bret and I wrote some songs together. I had worked with them in 2003, and then in 2004 or 5 and 6. And I ended up producing some stuff with Bret. And he came over to my house, at my old house, to sing on a record. And I'll never forget, Bret is not, people don't talk about Bret Michaels being a great singer, right? No one says that.
No.
His voice is freaking awesome. It's wide. It's engaging. It has conviction. And he did a couple takes, and his pitch is, it's okay. It's not amazing. But when I turned it up, we took the headphones off, I turned the speakers on, and his voice comes out of those things. I was like, that's why the guy sold 20 million, 30 million albums, because his voice is gold. He's got a gold voice. He's not a gold singer, but he's got a gold voice.
I understand exactly.
And so there's all these differences, right? So like that dude, that's a great example. He's a rock star and his voice is awesome, but he's not a great singer. He wouldn't make it past the auditions on those shows.
Interesting.
So it's this whole thing about, does someone's voice come through a speaker in a way that hits your soul? That's the whole thing. And the songs, that's the other thing, and again, I'm going to be critical of the judges on The Voice for 1 second. And I'm going to say all of them over the last 10 years, because they've all because, it's like you get teams. It's like, I want this singer to be on my team. And, I would do anything for this kid. You know what you want to, if you want to help them out, give them a song.
Get them right.
The next time somebody comes to you and says, hey, there's this pretty great song here, I think you should cut it. You want to help a kid have a career, give them a song. But no one's giving up songs, because hit songs don't grow on trees. And if somebody comes to Adam Levine and says, dude, check this song out, he's going to be like, fuck yeah, I'm singing that shit. And I'm not judging him. him. I would do the same fucking thing.
Everybody would. Absolutely.
But when they go on the shows, this is where as just an artist and someone that loves music so much and creativity, competition and musician and arts, I just don't think they work together. I don't like how they work together. Being an artist and having a competition, fucking Grammys and these awards, I mean, they're nice, but real artists aren't doing, fucking Prince doesn't give a fuck about rewards. You know what I mean? Right. Awards. Excuse me. So, the problem with these competitions is that they're not promoting what a real artist is all about. And I think that's
the individuality of who they are.
Yeah. And there's again, songs. If they don't have a song, they won't have a career. That's just the end of it.
Jim, this is like a master class in production, behind the scenes music business. This is like one of the most fascinating conversations about this that I've had. Thank you.
I try, Craig. I try.
You succeeded. Ding. Touche. No, it was great, man. That was really good. Thank you. That was really I mean, it was very insightful, and you're behind the scenes and you're a producer, and I could see why people come to you for production, because you're actually going to give them advice that's going to help them, instead of man, this is wonderful. But in your head, you're thinking, no, I want you to have something that's going to, it's wonderful, but it's actually going to do something for your career.
Well, I've been there. I got flown to New York to meet with Atlantic when I was 20, I don't know, 23, maybe 22. I've had indie deals. I've had, and I've also been in A&R people's offices where they straight up told me, hey man, you're not a star. Sorry. And it broke my heart. And
that's brutal.
It took me years to kind of come to terms with all of it. And it's funny because, being an artist, like there are so many things about it that I didn't understand of what it meant to be an artist. I'm a musician, and especially now, with how much personal information and how much about your personal life artists are expected to show the world. I'm just not comfortable in that. So it worked out, and if I would have been a successful artist at a very young age, I think that would have been really detrimental to my mental health. And I mean, navigating that is very difficult. But it's, for me, because I work with a lot of young singers and young artists, and I really try. I want to help them, but it's hard. I don't know the answers. I try to look at all these different ways that people are making it. What I do know, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the algorithms and the TikToks and how do you get a zillion views and go viral and all that stuff. What I do know that still rings true is if you do something great, people pay attention. That still holds true. If you're really funny and you get on TikTok and do some shit and do some bits, it's going to go around. If you're an amazing singer and you go and sit down and play a tune, people will start sharing it and go, man, you got to see this guy. This is awesome. Whatever. So, all that stuff, I'm trying to learn about it and try to help these people. One good thing is, I mean, the internet, for how much negative stuff it's done for certain musical things. Look, it gives a platform to people that never would have had this, platform before. I'm
one of them. Yeah.
100%. I mean, there's good and bad to both aspects of kind of the streaming stuff. And I mean, there used to be one way to become a rock star, and it was you had to get a record deal and you had to get, be one of 30 people that they signed and then let them do it. That's not true anymore.
No, it doesn't exist.
Which is kind of cool. I just still think
it's leveled the playing field for everybody. Everybody starts out even. That's one good thing it's done. If you have something to say, you can say it. You don't need, like you said, a record deal. But from there on in, it is an uphill battle. But isn't it like that with everything in life that you're trying to do? And if if you're trying to go to med school and become a doctor, God, that's hard.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to do. I mean, I'd have to love that to like work 6 days in a row or something like that. That's not my idea of fun. But it's like that with everything, I think.
I also used to think in terms of sports because I love sports and I played a lot of played sports when I was a kid.
Perfect example.
The thing about sports that I like is that numbers do not lie, and that's where anything creative you have a bias because you have something against you because it's just straight up subjective. I mean, I can write a song or I can play a tune in here right now and sing a song, and you could be like, dude, this guy's really good. He's talented. He should whatever. And the next guy goes, I don't like that guy. He stinks.
Right.
Okay. But if I play baseball and I hit 300,
yes,
every team, every school, if I'm in high school and I'm batting 300 in high school ball, every college baseball coach is going to go, I want to look at this kid. That kid knows how to play. I mean, numbers do not lie when it comes to sports. Obviously, there's a million other things. There's factors, there's injuries and biases and all that stuff. But that's where that whole Moneyball thing, like the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Steph Curry's numbers do not lie. That dude is the best shooter ever. And you can't argue that. He's the best 3-point shooter that has ever lived. So where it comes to music or painting and art, poetry, film, that's all subjective. It's tough.
And every guest I've had on the show that has a higher consciousness about it says the same thing that you just said a few minutes ago. Man, this is art. This is not a competition. Like even if they're at the top of the heap, they're like, that's random. This is I made this because I liked it, and not because I got a better deal or my numbers were better than And you're right. It's very subjective.
I'll make a caveat. The only time that competition has merit is when it pushes you to do be a better version of yourself. And I've seen that happen with artists, you hear about Prince and Michael Jackson being competitive with like the amount of hits they had or stuff like that. And those guys were, they weren't putting the other person down. They were going, okay, man, did you hear that new track? Okay, well, we got to level up. We got to do something hot. We got to come with some heat on the next one. And that's different. And that's not in a public forum where someone's getting told you're not as good as that person over there. And
they'll never go on that forum and say, I saw what Prince did. I'm going to crush his ass on my next single.
Right. Yeah.
You don't see stuff like that.
Well, that's why I also love Jennifer Hudson's story, because she didn't win, but she really won. You know what I mean? She didn't win American Idol, but God, did she win? You know what I mean? Yeah. It got her close enough. I don't know what she was, number 5 or 7 or whatever, however, number she got on that show. It got her, close enough and gave her enough visibility that people could look at her and go, okay, this girl's really talented. I mean, singing and acting and all that stuff. So I love that. And Daughtry has had a good career. I don't think he won either. So there's guys that can, sometimes, but again, this is going back. I mean, I don't know anybody recently in the last decade where somebody comes off those shows. Anyway, not to bash on the shows, because I mean, they have their place and they're entertaining. I just don't, the world I live in, like, it's not really, I don't love the competitiveness of it, so.
Yeah.
But
dude, thank you, man. That was phenomenal. I really appreciate that. I'm going to drop the tempo here now. What were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with? I know after that, need a cup of hot tea with some honey to tone down.
Low points. Well, as an optimist, I don't like to dwell on those. And again, I mean, in the beginning, when you were going through my credits, it's like, wow, when you put them all in like 30 seconds, it really sounds like I've done a lot. but there's lulls, there are lulls there. And I made a choice, Steve Feckney and I, to leave Avril Lavigne in 2013. And actually, that's actually really ironic that this sentence is about to happen, that I left her to play with the winner of The Voice, which was a girl named Cassidy Pope. And there were a couple of reasons that happened, but that was a very interesting experience. One of the main reasons I did that is because I had never worked in country music, and it was a box I wanted to check. She won. She had come from a rock and roll background, actually, and actually right now, I believe she just re-released this song, Wasting All These Tears, which had sold 1 million singles, right when it was her first single after The Voice. And she just released it in kind of an emo rock, version, which is really where she was mostly at home always. And I love Cassidy. Her country career did okay, but I think she was always at heart a rock singer. And And so, but I wanted to work in country. But going from working with an Avril Lavigne, someone super successful, and I had been, working with really A-list artists, to a fledgling artist. I mean, we went back to Vans, and really early morning radio promotional tours, which are incredibly difficult to do. And then we got the bus and everything, but like we went grassroots. Like I kind of went, in a way, I went backwards because we were playing very small places. I mean, we were playing bowling alleys and shit, So I went from the Tokyo Dome to playing the Garden Center.
Wow.
Like we would play at fucking Walmart. I mean, she would play anywhere because they were trying to get her going. And then she opened up for big acts, Tim McGraw and big arenas and stuff like that. But there were a lot of shows where it was like, what did we get ourselves into here? So it was, I don't want to say it was a low point, because it wasn't a low point, but it was kind of stepping back in ways in terms of the venues and the comfortability of certain things. And then there were a few years.
Financially, it had to be, a step back as well.
It was a little bit, but that was also part of the decision, because I knew that Avril wasn't going to be working so much in the coming years. And I knew that Cassidy would be very busy. So that's the thing, as a player, you want to work with artists that are busy. You can't really afford, I mean, sure, there's certain, some gigs have retainers and they kind of keep you around, but I mean, in general, you want to be working, right? And that's where, certain artists that are just road dogs, you hear about these guys. I mean, the Goos are one of them. I mean, they just work all the time. So there's not a lot of, time where you're just sitting at home twiddling your thumbs. And I saw, again, that was where I saw Avril heading into she was going to make a new album, and she was going to probably take some time off. And I had just had my daughter, and I was like, I gotta be out there working, man.
Yeah.
So, that was one of the reasons, because I knew that Cassidy was going to be incredibly busy for a time, and that was true. But then when that kind of died down, there were a couple of years of a little bit of lean. I mean, you go through these lulls. I mean, you get these big tours, and you're really successful for you're making a lot of money for X amount of months or a year or whatever it is, and then there's going to be breaks, and that's where the production stuff for me has been incredibly helpful, because having a studio and having gear that I can make a record from, whether it's in my house or at another room that I rent, those, and if you can get into productions, then that can tide you over until the next tour or the next kind of TV show or thing. So the production. And obviously it's great to be creative and fun and to write songs and get more music out into the world. But also financially, I figured a way, it became a business where I was able to, sustain,
build another income stream for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I've never said this to anybody. You really should put a book together, because the things that you're talking about, really, I've never said this to anybody, because yeah. And I've written a book, so I know what it's involved to write a book. And I know you have enough material to write a book. And because it's biographical in nature, but it's extremely instructional.
That's been hard. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate that. Yeah. And it's funny, because I've got about 220 pages, but what's weird is, again, sometimes with my brain, I'll go off and there'll be, stuff that's like super personal and stuff about where, I wrote a story. I'll indulge me for a moment. I wrote down a story, and I reread this recently, because I've been trying to organize things into something that's cohesive. It actually works well, because I was working with Cassidy. It was me, Steve Fecketti, and Cassidy, and it was just an acoustic jam. And in country,
you guys even look alike a little bit in some way. You look similar. Like if someone said you guys are like
we brothers,
step brothers or something.
Sometimes people ask that. Yeah, it's funny. We were doing a gig in Texas, and a lot of these a lot of these country gigs, it's like a round robin, right? So like, you know, an artist will come up with an acoustic, one guy or two guys, and then they'll do 4 or 5 songs, and then they'll bring up another act, and da, 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 da. So this was outside in Texas, and I don't know what the heck it was, but it was like 38 degrees. It was
oh my God,
freezing, and it was acoustic guitars, right? And I remember, so I called my wife, and I was asking about how my daughter was or whatever, and I was in a mood, let's just say. And look, we all know when we're at our best, right? And you know, sometimes when you're on the road for a while and the conditions aren't good, or I don't know, you're playing a crappy
38 degrees out, you're playing
gig
outside,
and whatever, and it's like she could hear that I was complaining, and I was, you know, whatever. And she said, "Listen," she said, you know, I wrote this all down, so I know exactly what she said, but I'm paraphrasing now. And she said something to the effect of, look, you can choose to be a little whiny, you know, whatever.
Little whiny bitch.
Or, you know, you can be the best you and make light of the situation. And she goes, look, there's people out there in the crowd that they're cold. They're drinking, but they're trying to have fun. You can be the best you and try to make it, you know, basically she was giving me agency. Look, because, you know, I have a large personality, and, you know, I'm Irish and Italian. I speak my mind, and usually, like, because I'm not a dark person, I think, by nature, but if I go that way, it's not good. And so she was just saying, look, you can turn this around and make it something different. And you know, it was about gratitude, right? She's like, look, you're out there, you're making music, you know, you can choose to have a great show or not, or you can whine about it. And it was a little tough love, and she doesn't normally do that. Actually, maybe she does. But I was like, you know what? Fuck, she's right. And so I hung up the phone, and I was like, all right, let's just have a hoot with this thing. And I remember we went out, and it was so cold. I think Steve was breaking strings. I mean, we were just strumming, and it was, but I turned it around, and I made light of it, and I was joking, and I became the better version of myself, and we had a great show. And so there are pointed moments, you know, that I write, you know, and then I went back to the room and I wrote it down, and I was like, you know what, that's one of the reasons I married this woman, is because she can call me out on a moment like that. And not only did she help me, she helped Cassidy and Steve and maybe a bunch of other people,
maybe a bunch of people in the audience,
that didn't know what was going on. And we had a great little thing, and it was, you know, whatever, it was 25-minute set or whatever it was, and froze our ass off, and then we went back in and warmed up and got something to eat. I mean, so but those are, you know, so there are things I've written down that are kind of very personal, that are like that.
That's a great story.
And
then, that's a part of the business.
You know,
I think that's a great story, man.
Thanks. Yeah. One other one real quick, since I think you're, you know, if you like those kinds of things, this was one of the things that stuck with me a lot. When I first joined Cher, I talked a little bit with Paul Mirkovich about the job and about, you know, because I'm going to try to gather information and, you know, figure out how am I going to fit in. But he had been doing it for so long, and it's a very demanding job. But you know, some of the songs after a while, you know, I would think would grow tired. And I said to him, hey man, how have you been doing this for like 18 years, like playing Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves or whatever it was?
Dude, that's actually a great question.
And he told me something that I will never forget. He said, I think about the people that bought these tickets 6 months ago. They have their calendar. This date has been circled. They put hard-earned cash down, and they've been looking forward to this night for months. And he said, if I go out there and I don't give them 1,000%, I'm disrespecting them. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. So even if I don't feel it, and look, we all have nights we don't feel great. We don't want to get out there and, you know, whatever, you don't feel like playing. But I remember it almost daily. I think about it, and you know, if I'm in a mood or I'm tired or whatever, and then I think about, okay, there's a mom and a daughter. It's her first concert, or there's a kid, you know, a guy who learned Iris on acoustic and loves the band and whatever it is. And it really helps me because I think about them and I go, because I remember that was me going to see, Bon Jovi or Stevie Wonder or whoever. I would go to concerts. I'm so looking forward to it, man. Wanting these amazing shows. And, I'm up there. Yeah, I'm not in the spotlight, but I'm up there and I bring a lot of energy when I play. Even from behind the keyboard, I'm always moving and I'm singing on almost every song. And, that's how people get inspired. You go see somebody, you see somebody play and you look up there and you go, I want to do what that guy's doing. That guy, I want to be a keyboard player. I want to sing, or I want to be a guitar player like that guy and sing backgrounds with this girl. So I think about that and I think he was like so dead on. It's such a great thing to remember. And also it keeps you grounded and remember that, we're there to entertain these people. It's like, even no matter what's going on in our personal lives, have a bad day or something's going on at home or your dog is sick or, whatever, you got to respect those people out in there because they're paying your salary,
Yeah.
So yeah, I always remember that, he told me that. And, I think about it a lot, like especially when I'm having a day,
Shitty day. Yeah.
or a week.
It's interesting you say that because I've had some pretty successful artists on this show, and the ones who've had the longevity, we get into that conversation and almost 100% of the time they said that's almost verbatim what they say. They say, listen, I don't always have a good day, but I know that lady sitting there spent her entire paycheck to get that seat.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to disappoint her.
Can't.
So I think that's the best people that, I think that's a contributing factor to success. Having that attitude.
You have to respect the crowd. I mean, you have to respect these people. People fly in, people have reunions, that they haven't seen friends. You got to get out there and talk to them and understand dollars, many dollars. They were getting hotel rooms, rental cars, flights, seats, VIP packages. They buy the hoodies and whatever, and they love the music, it's in their soul. They know all the words. They, how much time they've spent with this music. I mean, how many times they've listened to these songs, and then you get up there and that's your gig, man. You got to give them everything you have. And I think that's when, if you're not doing that, that's when you got to move to another gig or another job or something. Yeah. And I've seen that with guys too. And, and I can be critical of that at my stage of my life. If I see somebody on a gig that's shoegazing or, not respecting, I've seen people in bands, like real bands. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's in one of the coolest bands that I know, and he looks like he's miserable. What are you doing? Like, show the joy. I mean, you don't have to fucking walk around with a smile on your face all night, but you got to,
you should,
I mean, but there's dudes,
not the worst,
but
for your own sake.
There's something about like being too cool. It's like, come on, dude, connect. Because if you don't look them in the eye and you don't engage and smile and whatever, it's like they're not connecting with them. And I think that's the part of the whole thing. It's like one of the things that Brad Fernquist does every night, which I think is really great. During Iris, he plays that iconic slide solo, and he's really great at this. He's always kind of, we're always surveying the first row or so. And, you kind of look at, and certain people obviously most people are looking at John most of the time, but, people are looking at us and they're engaging. He will pick out, I don't know how he does this, but he seems to pick out the most deserving person. And,
awesome.
And a lot of times, which I especially love, when there'll be like, a couple of really attractive girls that think they're super cool, and they'll be like, someone else standing next to them, like, an older lady or someone with a kid or whoever it is. And he will completely ignore the hot girl, the hot ones. And he will give the pick to probably the real fan, the one who is singing to all the songs or who's wearing the Goose,
Yeah.
you know, T-shirt or whatever it is. And he does it every night. And because I'm always wondering, like, who's he going to give it to tonight? Because I'm kind of behind him on a riser. So it's this little game. And I always think about who he's going to give the pick to. And it's really great, you know. And
That's very cool.
Yeah, I love that he does that. It's fun.
I just want to say two things about all that. Number one, I apologize. I have to give Steve Feckety a shout out because he's the one who connected us. So Steve, thank you very much. I usually do that in the beginning, but you know what? We had initially spoke like 4 months ago, I think, and I just spaced out. So Steve, I apologize. And thanks, Steve Feckety, for thinking of me. And also you said something about your wife, and this is the God's honest truth. I'm not just making this up. The number one thing that attracted me to date and be with my wife, I don't get down very much. Almost never. But when I do, I'm fucking down. And I need someone to kick my ass. And she was a real strong woman to do that. So that is such a valuable to have in, you know, for me, I feel it's such a valuable thing to have in a partner. Yeah, and everybody has their things that work for them based on your personalities, of course. But I think that's a great thing, man. I really, she's kicked my ass many times over the last 30 plus years.
Well, it seems like we're similar in that sense. Like, you know, we have a lot of energy, we have a lot of positivity. And of course, you know, I always talk about this with creativity. There's not an infinite jar there. I mean, I run out, you know, like
well, especially you get older,
well, you have to
like
recharge.
Sleep.
Well, you have to recharge, you know, that's the thing. And especially if you're, I'm like one of those like introverted extroverts or whatever. Like I'm totally good to not talk to a lot of people. But then when I do, I kind of get rolling and I get, you know, I can be quite garrulous. But if I'm in here writing and producing and juggling and doing my thing, I'm wiped out after a certain amount of hours or days. I mean, if I have an artist come in and I'm working, you know, because it's super high focus, right? I mean, that's the one of the misconceptions about people with ADHD. You know, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or attention deficit. It doesn't mean that you can't focus. You can hyper focus on one thing, and I can do that. I can hyper focus for hours on songs, you know, production, whatever, and nothing else is coming in. But it's when you're, you know, and you know, especially with kids, this is what's difficult is like, especially if it's a subject that doesn't interest you. If you're not interested in it, you're not going to pay attention to that shit. Yeah. I was thinking about music and girls and whatever during high school. I wasn't paying attention in class at all. It's a miracle I even passed. So, you know, it's like, but hyper focusing, then you start draining, you know, you're drained by the end of the day. Yeah. If you do that for 2 weeks, you're working on a project, I mean, or even in rehearsals, and you're just hyper focused on learning 25, 30 songs. It's like, okay, the parts, the vocals, you know, how am I going to switch this patch? And I got to move this and da-da-da-da-da. By the time you're done, you know, I'm just done. And like literally have to sit on a couch and, you know, watch 5 movies, you know, it's like, I'm just done. So to have a person though, that understands that and, you know, can work with you, when you're laid out, you know, it's like, that's super important.
Yeah, it's very important, man. Let me, what's your top 3 Desert Island discs?
Oh, Jesus.
In no particular order. It's so funny because somebody sent me a comment one time. They said, Craig, I love that people will come on your show and talk about getting sober, you know, recovering from cancer. And when you ask them that question, everybody freezes. It's like such a tough question because it is hard. It's really hard.
It's almost impossible.
Just for this moment.
I will tell you this.
Just for today.
So this isn't, I'm going to change your question in my answer.
Yeah. All right.
So there are a couple albums that I've listened to maybe more than any other albums. And they're strange albums in the sense that they're almost like medicine for my soul. Mm-hmm. There's a couple albums, and I can tell you one, and I'm going to guess that no one's ever said at least 1 or 2 of these records. Okay. So you're going to tell me if I'm alone in this, but there was a band in the 80s, late 80s or whatever, from Philly called the Hooters. And they
Yeah,
have
I had Eric Bazillion on here, man. I love those guys.
So
that guy is such a great guitar player.
Dude, that record is called Nervous Night. And there's something about, I think Dave Grohl was talking about it on his HBO special or whatever, that he did a documentary, and he was talking about influences. And there's an age where like music kind of grabs you a little harder than everybody, you know, a little more.
Totally.
And I think it's like 12 or 13 or like between 12 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that happened. And it was this summer that record came out, or right around there. And I spent summers at the Jersey Shore, and I had a keyboard. I got like a keyboard, and I was starting to learn songs. That record, Hooters Nervous Night, there's something about that record that if I'm in a bad place or whatever, or if I'm on an airplane and I don't know what to do and I'm just in a whatever, I put that on. I've listened to that record way too many times. Something about that speaks to me, to my childhood. It's, you know, it's all nostalgia stuff. But Bruce Hornsby, The Way It Is, as a piano player.
Yeah, I can see you.
And let's give a shout out to actually Bruce Hornsby as a singer. No one ever talks about that dude as a singer, ever.
True.
He's a great singer. He's a great singer.
Yeah.
And Huey Lewis sings backgrounds on like 2 songs on the record, and their harmony, I don't know, man, it hits me. It's just the greatest thing ever. There's a song called Down the Road Tonight about a guy who falls in love with a prostitute. And that's
a funny premise.
It's funny because when I first started doing music, I didn't really listen to lyrics. I would sing them, but I didn't know what I was saying. And that was one of the first songs my father, because I remember I was at his house, and he has a great Yamaha Baby Grand in a beautiful wood room that is their living room. And I spent many years, hours on that piano learning songs. And we would learn songs together, and he would show me, because he plays piano and sings. And he said, you know what the song's about? You know, because I was into Hornsby, and I was really kind of getting into that when I was like probably 15. And I said, I don't know what it's about. And, you know, and then we went through the lyrics, and he said, look, it's about this guy who falls in love with this girl. She's in this roadside shack down the thing. And the line is, when I told her that I loved her, she said, just keep coming back. And it's like this line, that's a really good line. And I didn't really know about,
just keep coming back.
And it was like, so I always remembered that song, and I learned it. And it's funny because I didn't know there was like country influence in that at the time, but you know, there's mandolin and actually both of those records. That's weird. The Hooters record, and
he plays a lot of instruments.
There's like mandolin, and then this kind of Hohner harmonium kind of Hooter thing.
Yeah.
But so that's a record that I've listened to. The you know, Bruce Hornsby. The Way It Is, that first record, I listened to a million times. And then the third record, maybe my favorite, is Scritti Politti.
Scritti Politti, I remember that.
Provisions. Now, their big hit was on the record before this called Cupid and Psych. Their hit was Perfect Way. But there's something about this Scritti Politti Provisions album that David Gamson produced. And it is maybe the most crisp sounding album, like with headphones. I mean, the production, especially at the time, I mean, he's a funky little dude, you know, that guy. I mean, I actually met him and got to write with him right when I first moved to LA, and then we kind of lost touch. But, you know, that dude is funky.
That's awesome.
You know, and that record has a weird spot for me. So
I don't even think I've ever said the word Scritti Politti, actually. So
well, see, I wanted to give you something different, man.
Yeah, these are,
you know, nobody's picking those.
I think someone has probably said the Way It Is before, but no one's ever said Nervous Night, and no one has ever said Scritti Politti for sure.
Yeah. So again, I don't know if they're like Desert Island. It might be, but those are 3 records that I mean, there's a lot of other ones as well, but those are ones that I've worn out, like in terms of trying to like analyze things and harmonies, production, you know, musicianship, you know, songs, melodies, and harmony. I mean, they're just, you know, those are records that just like, I can just put them on and I can do anything.
Tell me Best decision you ever made, Jim?
Oh God. Hopefully I haven't made it yet.
Hopefully you make a bunch more.
I don't know. I mean, one decision. Shit. I mean, maybe moving to Los Angeles. I mean, I don't know. You put me on the spot with that one. I don't know if it's the best. It was a good decision for me. It's worked out.
Sure has. So this is a new question, man. You're gonna break my cherry again. Maybe.
Awesome.
So, in what ways does who you are on the inside not match who you are on the outside?
Wow. I'm going all Al Berry on this. Wow. Al Berry's the best, man. When you ask him anything, it's
He's
a wow.
lovely,
He goes, wow. He wows you. Any question. You can be like, Al, what'd you have for breakfast today? He'd be like, wow. I don't know, man. It's awesome. He's the best.
I love seeing he puts so many nice pictures of him and his kids up.
Yeah.
That's like, he's a guy who, I'm not a big social media person. You know, I post
me
shows
either.
there once in a blue moon. If we do something different, Ann and I went like horseback riding, but the horses were in the ocean. So I put a picture of that because it was cool.
That's cool.
It was like one of the best things I've ever done. But Al gets the true meaning of my perception of what social media should be. He puts like pictures of his kids, and it's always happy. He doesn't write political. He doesn't like bitch about, there's always the guy like, joy. I can't believe this.
He's showing joy. Yeah. True joy.
You know, and when you got a guy that's like our age, 45 to 60, and they're like, I waited 10 minutes online today. I'm like, are you you need some fucking coping skills, man. You're 45, 50 years old, and this is what it's irate that you waited on. I mean, you need some fucking help here, man.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to, that's an instant delete. I don't want to see that shit.
Totally. Yeah.
That's
to
not
me,
a legitimate thing to bitch about.
Not to dodge your question, but to me, the best thing about the internet stuff is the comedy stuff. Really, that's like my wife and I, like people that are doing comedic things and like goofy things with dogs and like funny stuff about movies and like sports. Like the people that are funny. That to me is that's where we get, that's the only stuff I deal with on social media. Like other than that, I've curated my thing. It's only like positive stuff and but I don't know. So back to your question, because I want to try and answer it because it's a great question.
In what ways does who you are on the inside not match who you are on the outside?
Not many, I don't think, because I said before, I mean, I'm to a fault. I can be transparent. I mean, I've always been, you usually know if I'm not like digging something, like you can see it in my face instantly. So
I prefer that. I prefer dealing with people like that.
I try to be as authentic as I can. With knowing, where my compass is and look, I don't know if it was Paul Newman who said something like, a man with no enemies is a man with no character. I mean, we got to have, you are who you are. When you make a mistake, I try to learn from it and apologize and move on. And then, I mean, I'm a pretty sensitive, person, as most musicians and artists are. I mean, obviously as you get older, you get a little easier at dealing with that kind of stuff, but, I think
more forgiving.
That would probably be, I think maybe if anything, certain things bother me more, internally, than I'm letting on, at times, but some of it's self-preservation, and I mean,
you just can't yell at it. You can't fight. You can't talk logic to illogical people.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
my mother always said, you can't be rational with an irrational person. The other thing that I've learned over the years is when someone asks you to tell them the truth, that's a really tricky thing, because
tell them the truth as long as they want to hear it. As long as it's the truth they want to hear. Sometimes.
Well, because we all are looking at life through our own lens anyway.
Yeah.
And what, I mean, sure, there are facts, of course, but, you could talk to all 5 of the guys in the Goo Goo Dolls band after a show. How was the show? We'll all tell you a different answer.
Sure.
Probably. I mean,
yeah.
I try to look at it from like, okay, was it a good overall show? Was the, was the crowd into us? Was the band tight? Was the banter cool? Was the set list working? Whatever, there's all these things, but it's like, if I flub a chord or do a thing, which does not happen often, if I hit a clunker, then that's going to affect whether I think it was a good show or not. So, but we all have our lens, which is completely different. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's much. I hope there's not too much that I'm hiding, because I think that's a hard way to live. That's when you feel alone. Is when you're not telling people how you really feel about certain things.
I think that's very true.
That leads to resentments and anger and all that kind of stuff. And so
tell me about a change you've made or an experience you had that changed your outlook on life or your outlook on yourself.
I mean, being a father is probably the number one thing. I mean, which is a pretty stock answer, I guess. But I mean, if you become a father and it doesn't turn your world upside down, you're not doing it right.
Well said.
I don't know. I think being a parent, being a really good parent, is hard.
So much work.
If it's not hard for you to be a parent, again,
you're not working it too hard.
I don't think you're really working. You're really doing it. I mean, it's just hard. But I think it's incredible though, because nobody, like I think you mentioned it before, you were talking about your daughter. It's like nobody can cut through your bullshit like a kid. I mean, they will just say one little thing and you're like, oh my God, okay, obviously they're mirroring something you did or your wife did or whatever. And you're like, I know where she got it. She got it from me. That's wrong. And obviously I'm at fault here. I mean, there's nothing like that. And I think if you're into evolving and growing, having kids is the best way, because they're going to show you what you're doing wrong. I mean, they're going to let you know, and they're going to feed off your anxieties and your fears and your apprehension. So, I think it's the best learning. I mean, I don't think anything's going to teach you more than being a parent.
Tell me the favorite place you traveled, because I know you've been all over the world.
Well, my favorite place on the earth, as an easy one, is the Caribbean, and specifically the Virgin Islands. My wife and I got married on St. John, which is one of the 3 U.S. territories, St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. But we've also traveled to the British Virgin Islands, which are basically 10, 15 minutes from the U.S. There's hundreds of islands and they're all right there, but that's my happy place.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, we love it there. The water is amazing. The Caribbean, is not too rough. It's not like the Pacific or the Atlantic, Jersey Shore. I mean, where we go, it's very calm, and we love snorkeling and being in the water. No, it's just I love it so much. We're hoping to go on a trip coming up to get down there. But like this, actually, my first tattoo is the coordinates of where we got married, like the
that's cool.
exact spot, you know. So yeah, that's my favorite place to go.
You ever been to Cayman?
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Grand Cayman?
What is it? Grand Bahama? Is that an island? Grand Bahama?
We just played, actually, the Goose played, we've played all of those places. We did it. We did a Grand Bahamas. I think it was there. We have a Grand Cayman show coming up, actually, the top of next year. Yeah, I've been fortunate to get to a lot of them. I mean, I haven't been to all the islands, obviously,
Sure.
but, you know, the Bahamas has Atlantis place, which is great.
Right.
You know, but to me, St. John is like the best. The resort where we got married was destroyed in the hurricanes. So it's caught up in a bunch of red tape, but, you know, St. John doesn't have an airport, so it's much less populated and it's much more difficult to get to than St. Thomas. And 60%
you fly into one and
you fly
take a
into
boat?
St. Thomas and then you got a boat over.
Okay.
60% of the island is under the Virgin Islands National Park. So it's completely unspoiled compared to St. Thomas and St. Croix. It's just wonderful. And
is there stuff to do there? Like, what do you like? I'm sure they have a casino or something like that, but like, I'm not really.
Well, not on St. John. St. John's way chill. I mean, it's all water based. I mean, obviously, but they have ruins from sugar mill plantations, and but the beaches are some of the greatest beaches in the world. I mean, powder, you know, just amazing white sand beaches that are. The sand is nothing like we have here. I mean, it's just. I mean, down in Florida they have some like that.
Florida would have some nice beaches. Yeah, especially here on the West Coast.
You know, the water is just so warm, and I don't know. I just love it. You know, there's something, the vibe down there. Once I get down there, it's like everything just melts away. You know.
You know what, man? You just put that in my mind. I should look at that place for us to go. We went to.
Well, you're so close, man. You could hop right over, man. It'd be awesome.
We did Turks and Caicos. We did like an all-inclusive with all three kids quite some time ago, but it was a lot of fun there. It was a very relaxing place.
It's the best.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for saying that, man. I'm going to look into that. Be a great surprise vacation. Jim, toughest decision you ever had to make or most difficult thing you've had to do?
When you say difficult thing, you mean work-wise or personal?
No, personal.
Well, you know, a lot of them, I don't even say tough choices because sometimes I've been torn between a job or another job or to kind of stay with a situation or not. Those are sometimes hard when you feel. I think the toughest decisions are when you're balanced, when one side is financial and one side is creative. Those are the hard ones for me because it could be something where financially it will be really good for me, but creatively or artistically, I know I'm not going to be happy in that. But then you have to. You know, you have responsibilities.
Balance, as you said.
You have to have responsibilities as a parent and as a husband, and you know, so those are the toughest ones when it comes to kind of navigating the career. Because, look, I could, you know, we live in a you know, we're in Los Angeles here. It's very expensive here. We could move to a smaller town, another state. My wife's from Iowa. You know, we've talked about that. We could move to a smaller place with a smaller, where I wouldn't need to make as much. And that would open up.
Iowa would probably be 20% of your nut in
right.
where you're at now.
I mean, that would open up. That would open up maybe time and situations where I could spend more time either being creative on my own writing or my own, you know, artistic endeavors. But then, you know, you're missing whatever's going on here in town or the opportunities that come up based on my
Not many
geographic
people flying
position
into
here.
Iowa for production.
That's the thing. And where, you know, look, LA is still a place where a lot of things happen. There's a lot
Very
of
much.
opportunity. The film industry is here, and there's a lot of work that comes out of that.
Yes.
So, you know, those are the tough choices, though, in terms of just trying to figure out, you know, if, you know, leading an truly artistic life, but then balancing that between paying your bills, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Totally.
are the hardest for me.
That's the number one answer to that question. I don't ask it often. It's the number one answer when I do ask it. A couple more questions, and thank you so much for your time. You spent a lot of time with me. I really appreciate it. You shared some great stuff, man. Thank you very much. This is really a lot of fun and super interesting. Tell me the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and has that been intentional, or is that more of a natural part of aging?
I think in ways, I think my patience level with certain things has improved. And then with other things, that's gone the other way.
Yeah.
I think that I expect more. I think it's kind of both. Like I'm having more empathy for certain people in certain situations, but then expecting more out of other people. You know, I don't know what the more succinct way to put it than that. I'm sure there is a better way to phrase it, but I understand that when you're in your 20s and your early 30s, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to see things the way that they really are after going through them. And so I'm trying to have, and I think I am having more empathy for, you know, for trying to look at people, you know, look at people's, you know, viewpoints and say, okay, well, this is where they grew up. This is how old they are. This is the situation that they're in. Let's cut them a little slack on this decision that they made, and things like that. But I also think that if you've been doing something for a certain amount of time and you have a certain level of success, that you should behave in a certain way, and you know, people should be treated with respect. And you know, that's one of the toughest things I think musicians go through is you know, we're just fighting always. You know, I mean, no musician ever feels safe, you know, in their gig. It's horrible, but like, you know, we're all replaceable. I mean, that's the fact, is that we all are replaceable. It's something that my dad told me years and years and years ago. I didn't really believe him at the time, and I didn't want to hear it. And maybe I was having some ego stuff. But what I do know is this: everyone's replaceable. Some people are harder to replace. That's
an accurate
true
statement.
So I mean, you know, sure, the Goo Goo Dolls could find someone else if I left, or if they wanted to get rid of me. You know, but I do a lot, and I do it really, really well. So it wouldn't necessarily be easy, and it would be, it just would be different. That's all. You know, it would be a different band. And everybody's like that. You know, I mean, again, growing up in New Jersey, when I heard that Richie Sambora was no longer in Bon Jovi and they were going to keep doing shows, I was like, okay, they can replace anybody. I mean, David Lee Roth was replaced, you know, I mean, this has been going on for years in bands. It can happen at any level. You can be the lead singer, gone, you know, it just happens.
And people at all levels feel this way too.
It's terrible. I mean, it's a horrible way to exist when you have, even if you have a job, your sense of security is so small as a musician, because you know there's 100 dudes that are waiting, you know, there's 1,000 dudes that just want to get in there, you know, and so, you know, but as I'm getting older too, you know, I think I'm getting better at voicing my desires in a calm and cultured way, I guess. I mean, when I was a kid, it wasn't
calm
so
and cultured. You
know, I can, I think I can talk about it from a pragmatic standpoint, and you know, Fekete and
emotion out of it.
We talk about these books all the time. We read a lot of these I don't want to call them self-help books, but like, the 7 Habits of Highly Creative, Successful People. That's a great book. Atomic Habits, these books, Gabor Mate,
let me tell you, that guy, Gabor Mate.
Oh,
I love that guy.
Dude,
his personal story too, right?
Not too much. I know that he was,
he was a child. He grew up in a concentration camp. He was a child, and so what happened was all these kids that grew up in these concentration camps were all traumatized because their parents were not accessible. Because how do you be accessible to your child when you're like, oh my God, I got to make sure we can fucking breathe and live.
Dude, can't even imagine it.
I can't imagine. So what happened to him is he recognized this source of trauma, and he became a trauma therapist. I'm just listening to one of his audiobooks now, The Mind Says No, or something like that. I think it's called
I've read he's phenomenal. 3 of his books. The guy is just dead on. I mean, he's just so wonderful. So many great insights. And I really agree with 95% of what he says.
Yeah, he's a bright guy.
So, it's very helpful stuff. I grew up, there was alcoholism and stuff, but it wasn't like, overt trauma, but, there was stuff. And, and then, you grow and you kind of figure out who you are within it. But yeah, Fekani and I, we always recommending books to each other and stuff like that all the time. I think it's just, it's fun to learn about these different subjects and to kind of get insights on, cause I mean, it helps in your communication and helps in your empathy. And, it
helps you heal. Are you kidding me? It helps you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's helped me heal a lot.
Yeah.
I want to recommend this book to you. You do with it what you want. It's called ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families Workbook. I don't know if you ever got hip to that. I bought that book. It changed it's a workbook. It's based on a 12-step program. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
of course,
if you're interested in it, but okay, let me tell you, I bought this book. It changed my life. I probably did it about 4 or 5 years ago. I am literally a different person, and I've been studying self-help and self-development my entire life. Wow. And I'll tell you how much of an impact it made. Every Thanksgiving, my wife passes around this book. Whoever's here, boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, family, and you got to write what you're thankful for. And the year I did the program, I think I did it over the summertime maybe. And I always get the book last because I just want to read what everybody else has written. And then I write my own thing I'm grateful for. And Anne wrote in there, she said, "I'm so grateful Craig worked this program." And I said, I guess I'm a lot less of an asshole. She goes, "Oh yeah."
Wow.
And she meant it facetiously, but not really, in certain areas, like you talk, I had my things, and so, anybody I could turn on to that book, whatever you want to do with it, up to you. But I like to put that out there. Great. Anybody listening, if you grew up in a dysfunctional or alcoholic or substance abuse family, it's a great workbook, best $20 investment you ever made. Anyway,
great.
I don't want to preach. One last question. And, what's the thing in your life that's making you happiest right now or giving you the most joy or satisfaction?
Family. Yeah. I mean, just, especially because I travel quite a bit, or have been traveling in the last few years a lot again. We just moved, a year ago now, which it was like a blank, but we're in a new house. We're in a new neighborhood, which has been great. It's basically everything we were hoping for. Not that our old neighborhood was horrible by any stretch, but LA has been getting very populated and very congested. A lot of homeless problems going on.
Dude, I was there 2 years or a year and a half ago. I couldn't believe it. It was like
it's gotten crazy. It's gotten really crazy. And having a young daughter, I wanted her to be able to ride her bike down the road and not fear that there some crazy person was going to jump out of the bushes or whatever it was. And so we made it was a big deal. Trying to sell our house. post pandemic, and a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we'd been there 17 years, so that part was good because we'd built it up a bit.
Sure.
And it was nice. So we were able to sell it. But here's something I don't recommend. So I bought a house before selling my house. And had to, because the way we had to do it, we found this house and it was in a pre-foreclosure, so we had to jump on it and did all this stuff. So
you're lucky to get a pre-foreclosure. They're very hard to get.
We got this house. So at one point, as I bought the other one, was starting to renovate this one, was fixing up the old one and getting that ready to sell. So I had 2 homes that I'm paying for at the same time. And I was on tour. So while all of this was happening, so my wife was here with 2 dogs and an 8-year-old at the time, and renovations, no kitchen and no master bathroom. Wow. So yeah, it's a miracle we didn't get divorced over this whole thing. But in the end, it worked out. And I'm so grateful. We just did about 60 shows in the last 3.5, 4 months, and kind of wrapped that up. We have a handful of shows for the remainder of the year, but they're kind of one-offs, little bits at a time. So there's nothing like major tour going on for a little while. But I love being around my daughter and my wife and dogs, and we're big dog people, and so yeah, it's just been great to be around and to be able to take her to school in the morning and be around for stuff. She's super into chess right now, so
that's cool.
Which is like, she'll want to play chess at like 9 at night. I'm like, I have nothing. I'm terrible. I'm like, she's like taking my queen in like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, dude. But no, but it's been great. And she's getting to that age where, we can watch movies and, and do that stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Well, man, listen, I want to thank you very much for all your time. I got a lot out of this, and thanks so much. And thanks for being so open and kind. I want to tell people where they could find you and what you got to offer. Check out Jim's website. It's Jim McGorman, MCGORMAN.com. And if you are interested in working with Jim, either in a production capacity where you want to help you produce your next record or something you're working on, or a single or an EP, or if you're interested in doing some co-writing, or also for those of you looking to get some lessons in voice and piano, go to his website, jimmcgorman.com, and there's an email form. You can reach out to him there. I would suggest, if you are interested in having him work with you in a production capacity, you probably send him your music so he can, what you're looking for, so he has some way of, getting back to you and having a basis of conversation. And I think that's about it. And he'll be on tour with the Goo Goo Dolls, so if they're coming to a neighborhood near you, check them out. Anything else that you want that I forgot or left out? How can we put money in Jim McGorman's pockets here, man? We got a few minutes left. Let's do it.
No, man. No, I appreciate it. I had a great time chatting with you, and we had a great conversation on the phone before, so I know it'd be fun. And thanks for having me on. And
my pleasure.
I love what you're doing, man. Keep it going. And these are always great. So I mean, to have these, we didn't have this, when we were younger, so if someone's starting out and trying to get into music, I think it's a great resource. So I love that you're doing this, and it's been great, man. Super fun.
Thank you. Hang on a second. We'll wrap up. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this, please share it on your social media channels with all your friends. And thanks very much to Jim McGorman for spending time with us. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar or your piano or whatever the hell it is, float your boat and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Thanks so much, Jim.
Awesome.